Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Russ, we may be in the same situation where there's nobody out back. It's the TV.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Izzy's in there. I saw her.
Okay, told we're good.
Oh, all set? Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the October 24th, 2022 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. Before I introduce the board and get into our agenda, we do have one board interview that we will be conducting downstairs in the wheelwright room. It should take no more than 5 or 10 minutes, and then the board will be back up to start the meeting. Thank you.
Is this a new agenda?
assume.
Okay, good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance this evening, and those watching at home, and welcome to the October 24th, 2022 Town of Exeter Select Board. The board is reconvening after a 10-minute board interview conducted in the Wheelwright Room. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the Select Board to you. To my right, Selectwoman Levy Roundtree Olaf, good evening.
Good evening.
And our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan, good evening.
Hi, everyone.
The Select Board Clerk, to my left, Selectwoman Julie Gilman, good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
And Selectwoman Nancy Belanger, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome.
All the way to the left, our Town Manager, Mr. Russ Dean.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. And we have our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening, Joanna. And my name is Nico Papakostandis. To start our meeting this evening, this is becoming one of the fun parts of our job, is inviting Chief Poulin and the Police Department to share not only with the board and town staff, but folks at home, the swearing in of new officers and promoted officers. This evening we have two. We have Mr. Devin West and Connor Kennedy, and Chief Poulin, I will turn it over to you and Town Clerk for the swearing in. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for giving us the time to do these ceremonies. We look forward to them, and I know it means a lot to the family as well. So right off the bat, we're going to be starting, we're going to have two swearing-in ceremonies. Our Exeter Town Clerk, Andy Kohler, is going to be performing their appointments. The first is our newest officer joining the Exeter Police Department, Connor Kennedy. Connor grew up in Burlington, Connecticut, and joined the United States Marines upon graduating high school. He served honorably from 2017 to 2021. After the military, he worked as an exposure detective canine handler for MSA Security. He'll be attending the next police academy in January and plans on moving his wife and two sons to the Exeter area upon graduating.
There you go.
Thank you.
Connor will have his badge pinned on by his father, Philip, who is also a retired captain of the New Britain Police Department. So at this time, we'll invite Town Clerk Andy Kohler to come up and Connor Kennedy.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Connor Kennedy,
I, Connor Kennedy,
of Burlington, Connecticut,
Burlington, Connecticut,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will bear faithful
that I will bear faithful
and true allegiance
and true allegiance
to the United States of America
to the United States of America
and the state of New Hampshire,
and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the constitutions thereof,
and will support the constitutions thereof,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I, Connor Kennedy,
I, Connor Kennedy,
do solemnly and sincerely
do solemnly and sincerely
swear and affirm
swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all duties incumbent on me
as a police officer,
as a police officer,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution,
of the Constitution,
and enforce the laws
and enforce the laws
of the state of New
of the
Hampshire.
state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our second ceremony is for our newest lieutenant, Devin West. Devin began working for the Exeter Police Department in June of 2014. He came to us with prior law enforcement experience, having graduated from the Federal Law Enforcement Academy and serving as a U.S. Capitol Police Officer in Washington, D.C. from 2011 to 2014. Devin holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Westfield State. As an Exeter officer, Devin has always displayed professionalism and a strong work ethic. He received letters of recognition for his work and was also named Employee of the Quarter in 2017. Devin was also one of this agency's field training officers, and in 2019, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. He has been a great first-line supervisor and will continue to be an asset to this agency in his new role as a patrol lieutenant. Devin will have his badge pinned on by his son Tucker.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Devin West,
I, Devin West,
of Haverhill, Mass,
of Haverhill, Mass,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will bear faithful
that I will bear faithful
and true allegiance
and true allegiance
to the United States of America
to the United States of America
and the state of New
and the
Hampshire,
state of New Hampshire,
and will support the constitutions thereof.
and will support the constitutions thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Devin West,
I, Devin West,
do solemnly and sincerely
do solemnly and sincerely
swear and affirm
swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent on me
as a police lieutenant
as a police lieutenant
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution,
of the Constitution,
and enforce the laws
and enforce the laws
of the state of New
of the
Hampshire.
state of New Hampshire.
So help me
So help me
God.
God.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Devin.
Thank you. I would invite the family to go downstairs. There's a nice room down to the left. You can take some nice photos down there. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Chief Poulin, thank you. Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Always a nice way to start the
It
evening,
is.
isn't it?
You too.
Thank you.
Oh, look. It works. I don't need Justin now.
How many times does a new person get hired? Unless it's done just quarterly. You know, you bring it in. But it's like not, I mean, you know, we can't even fill it, you know. I mean, that's it.
All right.
Yeah. But it's not like honor or bravery, but anytime that somebody new comes on, let's make a big deal about it. Yeah, celebrate that. It would be
Well, that certainly is an inspiring way to start the meeting. Mr. Dean, I'm glad the police department is now sharing these moments and ceremonies with the board and with the public. I think it's important for the public to see this, so.
Yes, I agree.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Now open the meeting up to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to come in and make a comment. If your comment is relative to any of the discussion items, we ask that you wait till it comes up on the agenda. But if not, I will open it up to public comment. And seeing none, we will close the public comment. However, I will make a quick public service announcement that this is the last select board meeting before the election. The election will be held November 8th at Talbot Gym. The polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m., and 7 a.m. And we hope to have a great turnout. So. We don't have any proclamations or recognitions this evening. Get to the approval of the minutes of the Select Board regular meeting of October 12th, 2022. I'd first ask the board if there are any amendments or revisions to the minutes. Seeing none, and then I would entertain a motion to approve the Select Board regular meeting minutes of October 11th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And we have one appointment this evening, and this is from our interview earlier tonight. I would entertain a motion to appoint Christopher Ziegmont to the Communications Committee with a term to expire on April 30th, 2025.
Second.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Ziegmont.
Thank you for your service and concern.
Absolutely. What you said.
Jumping into our discussion items, first item of business this evening is another presentation to review and discuss the potential public safety complex station and warrant article for the 2023 warrant. With us this evening, we have Town Planner Dave Sharples. We also have Fire Chief Wilking and Assistant Fire Chief Pizon, our Finance Director Corey Stevens, and we have three members of the Budget Recommendations Committee who are sitting in. We have the Chair of the Police and Fire Subcommittee, Dr. Judy Rowan, and we have BRC members Chris Siegmund and Dr. Anthony Zwan. Good evening and welcome. The Chair of the BRC, Bob Kelly, sends his regrets. He was unable to make it this evening due to a conflict. So with that, Mr. Sharples, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Thank you. Well, you stole my thunder on the first two slides, so I'll skip over those.
Or not.
Well, I'll repeat. I have Chief Poulin here. He'll be part of the presentation. So will Fire Chief Eric Wilkin and myself, Dave Sharples, the Town Planner. Just wanted to explain why am I here, Town Planner, Public Safety Complex. The reason why I'm here is just to have experience with project management from municipal projects from idea to completion. And so in consultation with the town manager, I started attending the Facilities Advisory Committee and provided support for this project as far as process goes. So I have experience, writing the scope of work, issuing an RFP or an RFQ, coming up with ranking criteria, reviewing the proposals, getting an interview panel together, and going through the consultant selection process, and kind of just, helping where needed and keep the project moving forward. That said, the chiefs have really done the lion's share of the work. They're the ones that have spent the hours with LaValle Brenzinger Architects, going over the floor plans, going over the space needs, the programmatic needs assessment, and so forth. So they deserve a lot of the credit, and I just kind of have, been helping them manage the project. And this is outline of what we're going to talk about this evening. I'll go through the background, kind of how did we get here. We'll go through the purpose of the project, kind of the why we're here, the need for it, and the chiefs will also come in at that point after I start that discussion and talk about their respective departments and their needs and how the existing conditions of their current facilities. We'll look at the selection, evaluation of the site options that occurred, the selection of the alternatives. We'll look at the refining of the proposals that the chiefs did, and look at the 2023 warrant article that will be proposed, and we'll finish up with comments from the chiefs and any questions. So long outline, a lot of stuff. I'm going to stay pretty high level. I'm not going to get into any granular detail. I do have all the documents that LBA created. There's a lot of information there. It's all on our website, which I'll mention as well. But we're happy to answer any questions at the end, any specific questions you might have. So how do we get here? Going back a little over 20 years, there was a fire infrastructure study report in 2001 by Firescope Inc. And this study focused on fire response times, and it also examined the need for an additional fire station. The study did not focus on the existing station, just a potential fire station, substation. They did recommend a second station to, quote, provide better coverage to the residential area north of Route 101 and still provide coverage to the Epping Road corridor. They also recommended the examination of a third station in the western area of town. That culminated in a fire station, substation, going before the voters in 2003, but it was voted down. Fast forward about 4 years later, and the town of Exeter conducted an organizational effectiveness and efficiency study of the fire department in 2007 by the MMA Consultant, Inc. The study was primarily geared towards staffing levels, but did include the examination of a second station. And they recommended that the town, quote, acquire enough land in the Epping Road area to enable the town to construct a second fire station in the future. And they made several recommendations as far as increase in staffing levels. So there seemed to be a common theme between the 2001 study and the 2007. They were both recommending a second fire station somewhere north of the railroad tracks. They kept saying Epping Road, but that was more of a function, north meaning north of the railroad tracks to access the northern parts of the town. Fast forward another 4 years, and in June of 2010, the town purchased the property at 6 Continental Drive for public safety use. That is it's a little small photo, but you can see the parcel up there. It's a 2-acre vacant parcel of land, and there's a later one we'll show you a little more detail. Then fast forward again to 2018, where the town adopted an updated master plan, and 2 action items came out of that regarding public safety. And one was to resolve outstanding issues with public safety department facilities through a comprehensive public safety services evaluations that includes recommendations. And based on the findings of the service evaluation, move with top priority recommendations and identify grants to support final design and construction as well as staffing. And then after that came out in 2009, the town manager recommended a warrant article to conduct a public safety department facility data and staffing analysis as a result of the 2018 master plan action agenda item. And I think this was really a catalyst to where we are today. This study took a pretty deep dive into the operational analysis, deployment. I did a heat map, looked at fires, response times, and so forth in the various parts of town, and also focused a little bit on facility discussion in section 6. The report, and I won't go over it, the chiefs can go over that. It identified several challenges with the existing facility as far as space needs and what a modern, public safety facility would need. So to that end, the study recommended that the town conduct a space needs assessment and provide site options for the town to explore. So that was brought to the voters following in 2020, and they voted it in to conduct a program and site evaluation for a public safety complex. The town then issued an RFQ in coordination with the Facilities Advisory Committee. The scope of work in the RFQ was vetted with the Facilities Advisory Committee, which we worked with consistently and met and discussed this project on pretty much every meeting on a monthly basis. The town ended up selecting LaValle Brensinger Architects to work with the town. And in coordination with the town, LBA developed a programmatic needs assessment for both fire and police, an evaluation of site options, and conceptual budgets for multiple options. And I'm not going to go into detail on these multiple options. I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has at the end about the different sites we'll look at, and I'll go over the sites in a second. But all these documents are available on our website. You can either go to fire or planning or police and go to public safety complex analysis, click on it, and all the documents that LBA created are on there, as well as budgets and so forth, and some frequently asked questions that have just started that the chiefs have just started working on. So what was the purpose of the project? The purpose was to find suitable site or sites for our public safety departments. And when you do anything, what's the purpose? Why? What's the need? And I'll highlight a couple of the major items, and then I'll have the chiefs fill in. So the existing public safety complex at 20 Court Street, which is shown in the photo to the right, was constructed in 1979. And which about 43 years ago. And at that time, in 1980, the Exeter population was 11,024 people, according to the 1980 U.S. Census. Today, according to the 2020 Census, which I think it's a lot more now. We might have added at least 1,000 people since 2020, but according to the 2020 census, 16,049 people, which represents an increase of 5,025 people, or a 46% increase. So 5,000 people got added to town in those 43 years, come along with increased call volumes, increased need for medical services, increased need for public safety, police calls, etc. And to give you a snapshot of where the staffing levels were at that time, in 1979, when they moved into the building, the police department had 31 employees and the fire department had 13. Total of 44 employees. Today, the police department has 37 employees, and from 13 to 37, and the fire department has, 31 to 37, 31 to 37, and the fire department has 35 employees, for a total of 72 employees. That represents an increase of 28 employees, or 64% increase. Pretty interesting that 28 people that, when this was originally built, the staffing in there are 28 more bodies in that building today than there were when it got built. So needless to say, both the police and fire departments have outgrown their current facility, and multiple renovations have been done to accommodate the growing departments, to fit in these additional 28 people, to fit into these additional processes that they have. And examples include they installed petitions to make more but smaller rooms, converting a closet into a kitchen. And for a more in-depth look on that, on our website, we do have a walkthrough video tour of the police and the fire department. It's well worth the watch. It just takes you through the crowded hallways and 5 people in one office, where very likely was one person, in the 1980s. For further details about their respective departments, before I go on, I'm going to pass it off to Chief Wilkin. Should I come up?
Hi,
Thank you,
Chief.
David. Good evening, Board. Russ. A little bit of history has already been covered, and a lot of what I brought for notes is what we kind of did when we had our first public hearing, if you will, input session at the town hall. Seems like forever ago, but it was probably, 2 or 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So just to reiterate some of the things that have happened over the years, and David hit the nail on the head. We were predominantly a call volunteer fire department in 1980, skeleton crew. We had 12 career firefighters working 3 shifts. At the time, they were working 56 hours. So those 12 people fit in the 4 bunk rooms well, the kitchen well. There was a chief, an assistant chief, and a part-time administrator that turned into a full-time administrator. So those numbers are pretty small. The department incrementally grew over the next 20 years. Shortly after moving in, we went to 16 firefighters, which meant 4 per shift with 4 shifts. The working hours turned to 42 hours. Grew to 20 firefighters, grew to 24 firefighters. And at every one of those cases, the growth in personnel was due, it was due to increased run volume, more calls to service. Obviously, there was no additional station built, so it was just, why are we staffing up? It's because we were doing more and more and more. At the time, it was funny, I read the town report back in 1979. The chief was all proud of moving from 30 Court up to 20 Court Street. We did 762 calls this year, and we got 12 people, and now we do just shy of 4,000 calls with 35 people. And David hit the nail on the head again about space. We've got a deputy chief of prevention in the IT electrical room, so we had to petition our stuff, and that's where he greets clients and talks about plans. I have a deputy chief of training that is in the file room storage room, that we cleaned out the files, that we electronically store a lot of stuff. My office and Chief Pizon's office appreciably hasn't changed much over the 40 years, but a lot goes on. As we have gone from 4 people per shift to 7 people per shift, we now double rack in each room. We actually have a storage closet at the end of the hall. We have 3 firefighters sleeping in the same room. As often as we can, the far ends, but invariably somebody ends up being in the middle. And because of the need for increased Support places like bathrooms, unisex, we've had to make our EOC and our training room smaller. It's about 50% of the size it was when it was built in 1979. So every step of the way, just for the personnel, the building has become too small. So we have 4 chiefs today, 1.5 positions. We've chosen not to fill the half administrative assistant position or clerk's position, and we have 28 firefighter EMTs or paramedics. Now let's talk about the first floor. When they built that building, apparatus of the day was approximately 8.5 feet tall, 8 feet wide, because that's how wide the DOT or the Department of Transportation allowed vehicles to be, and about 30 feet long. Today, vehicles are 9.5 feet wide because that's a legal width, and every manufacturer is making trucks to fit as much stuff as we ask them to. Our engines are 10.5 feet tall and 33 to 35 feet long. So you can already start to see the bays that were built in 1979 to house and accommodate the apparatus of the day. We've morphed the apparatus and we've done nothing to the building. So now we have 10-foot wide doors. We back 9-foot 6-piece apparatus in, and there's, as I said several times, if it's predictable, it's preventable. We're going to back into the door, we're going to hit it again. The roof, we have 18 inches of clearance over the trucks. We can't climb on the trucks, we can't repack hose, we can't do anything during the day without pulling apparatus outdoors. We pull it outdoors in inclement weather, yeah, we can wear our jackets, but it just gets to the point where we're in and out in the wintertime instead of able to do stuff in the building, and a lot of times it's, we're letting heat out and all these things go into place. So what we're looking to do, all of this kind of came into what David was talking about, is we really need a building that meets our space needs for not only personnel, but we need our space needs for the apparatus and equipment that we will purchase down the road. We already have much today. Do you want me to get into the substation, how it fits into this whole thing, or just save that for another moment? So we talk about why a substation. One of the things that he told you about the latest study that the Center for Public Safety Management, CPSM, did in 2020 using 2019 data. That study was telltale. That study reinforced what we've been saying for 20 years, but did it in a great way using heat maps and run volume. They indicated that, as many of us know, the vast majority of calls for service for the fire department and EMS is in the center core of town. In 2019, using that data, 84% of the calls we could reach from Court Street in 4 minutes or less. 4 minutes or less is a benchmark set nationally that towns are rated against to see what you can do. And the idea is to try to hit 90% of the calls in 4 minutes or less. No matter what you do, you can't do 100%. So we make inroads to do that. We just got done running the numbers for 2022. In the last 3 years, moving forward from 2019 to 2022, calls for service in the downtown core have dropped from 84% to 78%. What we're seeing is more calls on the outside of town. We're seeing more calls in the Epping corridor.
Can I ask a question about that? So
You may.
does that mean that the number of calls or the percentage of calls?
Percentage of calls.
Okay, so we're still getting...
We're still tracking more than last year. When I addressed you 2 weeks ago, we were 250 EMS calls ahead of the previous year. Now we're almost 300 calls ahead of last year. So we're seeing more calls for service. I think the year will end up totaling about what we did last year. It's going to be right in the vicinity of 4,000. But the split is different. The 1,600 calls downtown have dropped to 1,400 calls downtown, and more calls are in the periphery. We're seeing that because there are more people living on McKay Drive, on Meeting Place, and Ray Farm. And you see what's happening out there with proposals for the Gateway of Exeter and other proposals. We do fire-related calls, fire alarms and whatnot during the day for a lot of the business and industry that continue to grow. And we do a lot more medical type responses to all of the housing in that area, not to mention new additions, new homes being built off Brentwood Road, new homes being built off of Watson Road, new development. So we're already seeing that trend. 4% might not feel like much, but it's trending in the direction that we predicted for years, that the town, although we want to talk infill, we want to talk for all the right reasons, maximizing space within the center core, in reality what's happening is we're still seeing growth on the outsides of town that we have never serviced properly, never, in our opinion, never serviced within that 4 minutes. So the substation becomes important to us, not only from a delivery of service standpoint, but maximizing space downtown. If we can move personnel out of the downtown, it allows us to kind of spread our wings and as Dave and I have talked about, hit the pause button. You know, if we didn't have seven staff members working at Court Street and we had 4 and 3 on the substation, it allows us to take a look at the space better. If we moved a fire engine and ambulance to Epping Road or Continental Drive instead of Court Street, it allows us to utilize some space on the floor better. Doesn't fix our doors, doesn't fix the height, doesn't fit the length, but it gives us some breathing room, some time to actually evaluate where we are and what we need to do. So the substation fits perfectly onto the plan you've heard now for 25 years about servicing the town, but it gives us the ability to kind of split things up a little bit, make us make more room downtown so we can make good decisions on what to do in the future. I don't know how much more in detail you want me to go on run volume, or I can just let David come back up. We can go back and forth.
Actually,
Chief.
Chief, I have one question. It's not really a question because the last time you were here with Dave and Chief Poulin, you brought up a good point, and I'd like you to repeat it for folks that are home watching. You spoke about the decreasing the call time in certain parts of town because you're going to have the substation there, particularly, with the train tracks where they are, the high school where it is. Could you just repeat and speak to that, please?
So that speaks to the 4-minute travel time. Currently, from the Court Street station, and I'm just going to, at this point in time, key on the western northern side of town. We can reach the Hampton Town line in 4 to 5 minutes, and this side is pretty well being covered. As we respond from downtown towards Epping Road, towards Brentwood Road, towards Watson Road, and that whole northern piece of the town, we have to travel through what we all know is a congested downtown area. We make as much noise going by the town office as we can all day long, and I see smiles and everybody going through. We're trying to negotiate the bandstand. We then have to negotiate the narrow area up through Town Hill, well, what we all used to call Town Hill, going through the PA campus. We then have the corner at the Main Street School. We have to cross the railroad tracks, and invariably we get delayed by the railroad track often, and Chief Pizon can relay real-time personal experiences he's had with medical calls and lives lost due to the train. But then, of course, just a sheer travel time without any delay, and any one of us can Google it easily. If you put in 20 Court Street and pick a number to Brentwood Road, it's going to tell you it's over 4 minutes to get there. So basically, what we've determined through agreeably anecdotal data is the Park Street Common at the blinker at Winter Street, normally during the day with traffic and congestion and the speeds we can travel, that's our 4-minute mark. Anything beyond the blinker at where Winter Street crosses at the Park Street Common is beyond the 4 minutes. So how does Epping Road help or Continental Drive help? It drops a fire station right there that now lets us hit this high school in 4.5 minutes. It now lets us come back into town where it's not quite as congested with the same type of apparatus, an engine if there's a fire call or an ambulance. And now we can push right through the Park Street Common coming back east from that station. So one thing we really need to dispel the myth is when we push apparatus equipment to Epping Road, it's not banished there. It's not there for life. It's not that neighborhood's piece of equipment. As call volume happens, and we've had 3 calls today. We had 2 at a time, but last week we had 3 and 4 calls back to back. We got apparatus crossing the town going like crazy. You're out at Riverwoods at a medical call, then you hear the engine going sirens all the way out to Hampton Road. Invariably, we're in the wrong place. So what the taxpayer needs to understand is if they support the substation, they're supporting splitting our forces, allowing us to respond to a greater portion of the town. The numbers we're running is about 93%. I mentioned 90% is a good number. Most places look forward to. We could do 93% of our current call volume make it in 4 minutes or less from those two locations, 6 Continental Drive and 20 Court Street. I think those are enormous numbers. Those are really servicing the town now. But should the need arise that a second ambulance is needed on Hampton Road, it's going to come from Epping Road. It's going to shoot down. So the first one's out on a call, the second one's going to come from Epping Road. So traffic and apparatus is going to be flowing through town from 2 different directions, and it's going to be servicing the town from 2 different directions when needed. But that's perfect. Thank you so much for...
And to be clear, there's no additional staff. This will be the existing staff that you have now, divided between
That's
the
correct.
substation and the station.
The taxpayers supported this last March, moving the firefighter staffing from 6 on 2 shifts and 7 on 2 shifts to 7 across all 4 shifts. And we're happy to report, as we were 2 weeks ago, we have met that now. We are at 7 people per shift. The last firefighter came on, and tomorrow will be their first official shift day, but they had a week of orientation. Our goal is to run 2 stations with 7 people. Now, bearing in mind that the town still finds benefit dropping a position in order to maintain a level amount of overtime. There's only so much that the budget can bear, and we're fully respectful of that. That when we have 7 per shift, the first person, typically firefighter, EMT, that asks for vacation time, uses a sick day or personal day, that position's not filled. So there's going to be a portion of the time, and I would say significant, that we're going to run with 6 people, which would mean 3 at each station. 3 at each station allows us to staff an engine to the national standard. 3 people is a minimum that they'd like to see on an engine first due. It allows us to staff an ambulance and leave somebody behind for another call, an ambulance and an engine staff. So the 6 works, 7's better. CPSM, in the study said 7 was the optimum number for the town of Exeter because we could put 2 people on an ambulance, have 2 for a second ambulance call because those numbers drive our run volume, and still have 3 people available for an adequately staffed engine.
Okay.
When we drop to 6, we're dropping below that 7 number. Just to be clear, that's why the study went on to say what would be best for the town of Exeter down the road is to investigate an 8-person shift and dropping to 7. So when LBA kind of came in and was looking at buildings, each station is going to have 1 room that would consider right now flex space, so that if we were to staff in the future for an extra person, we wouldn't be, well, do we take the fire room and make a bunk room? How do we make this work? So there was nobody going to come before the town and ask for the millions that we're asking for without some looking to the future and saying we need an extra room in case somebody. Who'd have thought from 1979 to 78 to 2022 we would move from 12 firefighters to 28 firefighters? I mean, just the growth in town just showed it. So for us to stand here as elected officials and department managers and propose a building that barely met the needs today would just be the not great use of taxpayers. So we're recommending at least 1 room in each facility. That would give us room to hire 2 more people. Again, don't even know when this is going to happen. And we're talking down the road. These are discussions that will be made way down the road, but they're not going to be made because we have 2 stations. They're going to be made because of run volume, just like the existing firefighters we've already hired.
Right.
Were all hired due to run volume and the need for the personnel, not because we're staffing a second firehouse.
Right.
Or
Understood.
third, I think.
Would it be okay if I follow up on
Please,
that?
yep.
On Saturday at a public event, I had a few people ask me the same question, which was odd, but they asked me about the facility, and we were talking about response times, and one of my concerns that I voiced here and with you is the response time to the high school. And they asked me about the railroad bridge, getting underneath the railroad bridge on Newfields Road. How much of our equipment can actually make it under that bridge?
We purposely spec or build our engines to fit under the railroad bridge.
So we're
with room to
still
spare.
fine to get under there.
Everything but the ladder truck.
Because their question, both people had the same question, was why, if we're trying to avoid stall time at the tracks, aren't we going through Swayze or Water Street and going that way, so.
No, you bring up good points. We've tried that. We've done, and I think some of it's anecdotal. Some of it's you get in your car, I'll get in mine, and see where we go. We tried Portsmouth Ave because it's basically a 5-lane highway with turn lanes and all that. We can safely move through there pretty well. Obviously, it's got 3 stoplights that kind of slow us down. But we've tried Newfields Road, we've tried Epping Road to get to all those places, and it takes a while to get out there. The shortest distance is still Epping Road, so we tend to go that way. But yes, every truck we have will fit under that railroad bridge except the ladder truck.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions for Chief Wooten for now?
Yeah, you reserve the right to.
Yeah, always.
So, Chief, you want to?
Thank you.
Good evening, Chief.
All right, so we won't get into the size of the building and that we need more room. We're going to get into the why. Why do we need more room? Policing, as you know, is probably the highest liability department of any municipality. Policing, since 40 years, has changed drastically with the types of evidence we take in, how long we have to keep that evidence. Same goes for records retention. Some of our records have to be kept a lifetime. Juvenile records, things like that. But we're really dancing around some high liability areas with the building that we're in now. And a study by MRI actually goes into that in depth. But we're talking about victim witness privacy rights, being able to interview a victim privately without other people hearing what's going on or even them seeing them being interviewed. Juvenile privacy rights. Our juvenile cell, although it's sight and sound separate, it's an old adult cell that was converted into a juvenile cell, and it's right adjacent to our intake center. So that's another high liability area. We mentioned evidence. We have separate firearms evidence, drugs, valuables, money, jewelry, and then just your run-of-the-mill evidence, which evidence is also a generic term for found property. So even if somebody brings in a large bag of clothing that was found on Water Street, we have to keep that for at least 180 days. And we don't know who the owner is. So there's things like that. We just took in over 50 firearms the other day from one call. So there's a lot of issues when we're talking about space. I'm just going to read the conclusion to the MRI report, and that's really going to send a message home. Generally, despite the public-facing professional appearance of external areas of the Exeter Police Facility, observation of the current state of the facility at 20 Court Street reveals that nearly every workspace is overcrowded, whether by personnel or storage of agency-owned property. Again, policing back 40 years ago, officers really had a radio and a firearm. Now they've got so much equipment, and we're trying to fit that into lockers, into other spaces. Security and safety of employees and visitors to the Exeter Police Department is not assured within the current structure. These are warning signs, right? Compliance with imposed regulations and best practices associated with victim witness privacy, juvenile operations, evidence and property storage, records maintenance, and prisoner handling in the current structure is not assured. So again, while having a larger place to work and to be and store things sounds like what we're asking for, we're really asking for a real place to do things the right way and low liability way. For moving away from downtown, this gets asked of me and my officers a lot, is what happens when the police move out of downtown? Essentially, nothing's going to happen. We have roving patrols. We break up the town into different sectors. There's a car always in each sector. And that's how we respond. It's unlike how the fire department responds. We're going to continue to maintain our downtown presence with walking patrols, mountain bike patrols, and things like that, coffee with a cop. We're even going to have a small office still at 20 Court Street as like a touchdown spot. We can have our detective page be in there a lot, Monday through Friday during the day. We can also ask that the officers go in there and write some reports. We'll have a little workstation for them. So hopefully that answers some of the questions, but I'm also obviously available to take more.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Poulin? No? Russ, did you have anything?
Nope, no questions for me.
Although, Chief, like with Chief Wilkin, we reserve the right to bring you back up.
Sure.
You have the right to 1 minute.
Oh, I did want to make one comment,
looked like
Mr.
you-
Chair.
that's it.
Yeah, when we're talking about this project, one of the things that we need to make sure that isn't lost on people is the fact that our police department is operating in 6,728, I think it is, square feet today, which for a modern police department is woefully undersized. So just to kind of point that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, for this size town and the volume that they do, it's more like 16 to 20,000 probably is what a modern police station of that size would be. And we're going to get to that. So just to recap, we told you where we're, kind of background, how we got here, the history, the purpose and the need. I hope, that the need for these facilities has become clear. And then after we established the need, we did an evaluation of site options. And we looked at 4 different sites, and we kind of toyed around with other sites, but didn't do a deep dive into them. But the 4 sites we looked at were the existing facility at 20 Court Street, the town-owned parcel, I say Holland Way, but it's access off Portsmouth Ave. It's the gun club, and you go past the gun club, and we own some land up to, it's just short of Holland Way. There's a little strip of land that's privately owned between the town's land and Holland Way, so there really is no access. But it was ample size and space to look at multiple options: fire station only, fire and PD, PD only, and so forth. Also, the town-owned parcel on 6 Continental Drive. It's a 2-acre piece, and we also looked at 3032 Court Street, which is the site of our recreational department right now, and other uses such as the senior center, the fire museum. I believe Meals on Wheels is there as well. So multiple options were examined for these sites, and I'm not going to go through them all. We did multiple options from PD only to PD and fire to fire only and so forth, and then PD and a fire substation and so forth. But all that information is on our website. It's all evaluated, all the sites are evaluated with the pros and cons. And basically Holland Way, there was access issues. Those could be overcome, but one of the biggest stumbling blocks we found when we were doing it, we found out that back in early 2000s, about 20 years ago, they designed a surface water treatment plant for that site. And it never ended up moving forward. I think it may have made a ballot. It was predated me, but for those reasons, not to say that was going to be, but the Exeter Reservoir is right there. If we are going to do something with water in the future potentially, or we have a need there, then, coupled with the access issues and the fact that a substation, fire substation didn't work there, Holland Way was kind of taken off the table. There was 3032 Court Street, which when we first started this, it wasn't on the market, if you will. Like, it was, the rec department, they had just gone through a complex that got voted down at 4 Hampton Road, so it was kind of in flux of where they were going to be. But then during this process, during the study, 10 Hampton Road came up, the voters voted it in to purchase the property, so that kind of became an option. The Facilities Advisory Committee wanted to be explored. We looked at it, felt it was too small. The only thing that could possibly fit was a PD police station only, and I came to the select board to look at that because there are numerous challenges with the site, existing buildings and so forth, historic buildings, and it was decided to, not really continue pursuing 3032 Court Street. And also another visit to the select board was looking at, should we look at a fire substation? And I think based on all the things in the research that's been done, the select board supported continuing looking at a viable option for a fire substation. So we took these options, just to say the community outreach. We held the Facilities Advisory Committee held a public workshop on the options in March 2022, and the town hosted a public forum at the town hall on May 4th, 2022. And like I said, all the detailed information of each of those sites on our website. But through the process, the most desirable option really that came through was identified to be a new police station and fire substation at 6 Continental, and either renovate or raise and build a new main fire station at 20 Court Street. And 6 Continental was purchased by the town specifically for public safety use, and it was large enough to cover accommodate the program for both the police and fire substation. So it was really an ideal site. So once we had a path forward, we went to work on refining the proposals, and the chief spent considerable time with LBA refining their space needs to minimize the overall building size while maintaining an adequate layout to support a modern facility with some room to grow, both at 6 Continental and 20 Court Street. And I applaud them for being patient with me, because I was all square footage, cut and just examine it. And not that you shouldn't have what you need, but don't have one more square foot than you do need for now. And, you go out, you look out to 2040, 2050. You don't look 100 years ahead, you look in that time frame. And so they cut, through that, they were very amenable, and they worked hard. We went through, 3 or 4 different iterations. The police station started at like 18,000 square feet, and then they got it down into 16 and change. So really a credit to them to combine uses, not sacrifice their programming or a modern facility, but just, really looking at the proposal and refining it, because at $600 a square foot, which you'll see in a minute about current pricing for these facilities, every 1,000 square feet is a lot of money and matters a lot. So they were very, very accommodating. So then we got to a point that we were looking at 6 Continental and 20 Court, the new PD and substation at 6 Continental, and renovate or raise at 20 Court. And in consultation with the Select Board Chair, the Budget Review Committee Chair, Town Manager, Assistant Town Manager, and the Finance Director, it was decided to move ahead with the project in 2 phases. And the first phase would be to put a warrant article forward for the new PD and fire substation at 6 Continental, and kind of take raising and renovating, as the fire chief mentioned earlier, kind of put that on hold, not off, but say, okay, we'll go ahead with this warrant article, and then we'll figure out whether to raise or build new at a main fire station. And we have pros, cons on that. There's some information on both different options on our website, as long as cost proposals. But I am going to move on and focus on the warrant article proposal. And that proposal is to bring forward a warrant article for $15,950,000 to construct a new police station and fire substation at 6 Continental. And the idea is to place that on the March 2023 ballot. And I'm not tech savvy, so I was unable to put this other thing in this PowerPoint, so let me open that up.
Dave, while you do that, we have a letter in our packet under correspondence, but I think it's prudent to acknowledge it for the record now. Joanna, we have a letter of support for a net zero option from the chair of the Energy Committee on behalf of the Energy Committee, asking that, or supporting the net zero option to the proposed new public safety complex. It goes on to say that the approximate 4% upfront additional cost will be more than recovered from over the life of the project if the building is constructed to be as energy efficient as possible from the start. The committee will aggressively research grants, rebates, and et cetera to go towards the project by looking into the new Inflation Reduction Act and many other sources.
Thank you. And I will address that as well when I discuss the particulars about the $15,950,000 and what that's expected to get us. So here is just a conceptual level drawing. Just want to, these drawings that you'll see, I do have some elevations to show you, but it's more about massing and size of the building than it is final design. These are not final design. It may not look anything like this except for kind of the massing. The materials, the roof pitches, flat roof, pitched roof, so forth, are all details that will be handled in final design that are included in that price. But we wanted to get a sense of what it could look like and show the public that. And it very well could end up looking similar to this. It's just these are concept designs. So, executive summary of, excuse me a second, of the site at 6 Continental is the proposed new police department and fire substation is located on the corner of Continental Drive and Gillian Lane. The site is relatively flat, slopes from front from back to front, and it will require a retaining wall. I'll show you that in a sketch here. And it'll accommodate secure parking for both police, fire, some public parking, an auto impound, a 2-bay detached garage, trash enclosures, apparatus, apron, etc. And then a large community room will be a main feature of it as well. There is some sustainability initiatives that this would include, and the proposed building will meet or exceed the current New Hampshire Energy Code. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And the building will be designed with all electrical equipment, which will be net zero or passive house ready in the future for solar panels. And we'll look at sustainable materials, low flow fixtures, and LED lights will be used throughout the project. So here's the site. I don't think this is this a, nope, this isn't a laser pointer. But you'll see Gillian Lane on your right. There's the site. The site is the black line with the 2 dots. It's somewhat of a rectangle is the site. Is the property on Continental Drive, you'll see goes across left to right along the bottom. And you'll see the footprint of the building in the middle of there. The green, light green parking is the public parking. You'll access that off Continental Drive. Then you'll go back and around the back. The purple is where the police secured parking will be. There'll be gated access to that area on that side. And on the left side where the reddish colored parking is, that will be fire department parking. And you see the apron down on the left to access the fire substation.
Dave, can I slow you down for a second?
Sure.
Epping Road to your right?
Epping Road's to your right. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're coming down, you take a left on Continental or right on Continental, you're coming down, and this is on your right, not far down that road.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions on the site? Any more questions on the site?
Just
Sure.
so to be clear, you're not going to see it from Epping Road because it's set off of Epping Road a bit.
You are.
Correct?
You are not going to see it.
Visibility,
Yeah,
for
you're
good
not-
or for bad. That's just
Correct.
Just stating the
Correct.
obvious there. But
And that's where design options and, will come into play and the net zero approach. If materials increase, you can always work with materials because it's not downtown, whereas, historic district, so forth, you might want to, use a little bit higher end. You could, not to sacrifice the building envelope, but sometimes you can get away with, a little lesser materials on the exterior to as an offset. But hopefully we have enough, funding for it, but we'll get into that in a minute. And this one doesn't seem to be working for the thing, so I'm gonna... So we've seen what the site looks like. This is the first floor plan for the police department. You'll see that on the left is the 60-foot apron that's coming in from Continental. So Continental Drive is left to right along the bottom of the page. And I know you probably can't read that very well, but the tan, when you come in, the tan is the main entrance. The tan color that's where the public can access. It'll come in, there'll be a main lobby, gathering space. To the right, there's a, vestibule, there's a community room. The big rectangle is the community room. There's a bathroom and an interview room, and those are all accessible from the public. The public can walk in and go there without, needing any car access or secured access. That is the only part of this building that will be accessible from the public without some sort of authorized access. And if I wish does the other have a pointer? Do you have a?
That's what I was looking for.
Is that one?
I can.
Okay, well, I'll just make do then. We'll just sweep around. Oh, it does? That would be great. All right, perfect. So this is where you enter. This is the vestibule. This is the public lobby. This opens into the community room. There's a public bathroom and an interview room. And as you come up here, you go, this is where the public there's a secured window there, and there's a clerk station to welcome folks if they come in and want to speak to an officer or a firefighter. So if they, because there's no real, there is secured access over here too, but this is where we're going to direct the public for both departments.
So when you first walk in, there's no one, it's not like the current setup?
No, there is. It's right here.
No, but, sorry. But how many, what's the square footage for that tan area? Like how much space is there between you see a human being to check in? So
well,
it's this
you
close?
walk it.
Okay.
This is like a vestibule for energy. I mean,
so it's not cold.
Exactly. So it's not cold. So you walk through this. This is really nothing here. And then you walk here, and then you look straight ahead, and there's a window. There with someone right there. So someone should have eyes on you, or you should have eyes on someone. As soon as you walk in, you'll see someone straight ahead. I don't know what the footage is, but maybe 20 feet or so. 18 feet. One or two. Equals a foot. Yeah, maybe 20 feet, if that.
And it'll be a big window too.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the, and then this is secured. There'll be a secured access here. You go up here and there's, patrol.
I'm sorry. We're on a very important part, I feel, is that community room. So I really want to emphasize that. And to your point, to access that community room, you can just come right in and go right to the left. So we envision, reserving that room much like some of these rooms are. Anybody will be able to use it, and what's better security than in a police department? Think about your Cub Scout groups, your Girl Scout groups, or any kind of civic groups that want to meet in a larger room. There's going to be a little kitchenette in there. So fire departments, all the departments. So it's really a shared room. I just wanted to really impress upon that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All the way around. Finish the tour. You know this floor plan better than I do. But I'll just run through it, and then if any of the chiefs want to add anything, you can add anything. And then you go behind here, patrol roll call. There's some patrol offices. This is kind of the patrol area, and then you move to the back. You get the mechanical. This is kind of mechanical storage, mechanical room, utilities, and so forth. You have the inner part right here in blue. This is like weapons, the weapons vault, drug storage, evidence rooms, and so forth. So very secure interior, mostly interior of the building, very secure area. You don't have access to, public can't get near it. Then this is your whole, you can tell me the lingo, but booking, processing, holding cells. You get the Sally port here. You bring them in from a secured, through the secured area, out back into this area, into booking and processing, and there's some holding cells in this area. So that's basically the first floor for the PD. This is the first floor for the fire. There is, secured access between the two that will be, maintained along this edge. And you come in here and you got lockers, extra storage, and along this area you have the radio room, extractor, and assigned gear and equipment here, and then it opens up into the bays and so forth. So there's like hot, warm, and cold zones, but the chiefs can you can explain that better than I, but that's where, kind of the hot zone, and then they decontaminate and move to the second floor, which would provide, the cool zone, where I'll get to that point. Since I was on the fire side on there, I'll go up to the second floor. And here are your bunks and offices right here. And then there's the staircase down that gets you down to the first floor quickly. And you move down and they have dining, crew day room, and some training and meeting space and bathrooms. So that's the substation right here, and then this doesn't have any part because this is open air above the apparatus bays. So this is, high ceilings to accommodate the equipment that Chief Wilkin was describing. And you can get into how much, how it fits the equipment and so forth. If there's any questions on that, I'll leave it to the people that know those answers. But then moving over into the police side, and this is kind of shared space too. There's agility area and a fitness room, and the one thing with combining the facilities, just as they do at 20 Court Street, you can have some economies of scale and share some things. So this was a shared agility and fitness room for both departments.
Sorry. How much bigger is this going to be than the current space? Because the current space is very, 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 very small.
Yeah.
So currently, we do not have an agility room or a weight room. There is a small weight room in the fire department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now, there's not even a real joint fitness space that you guys, it's just the one that's in the fire side?
Right.
Well, there is. We have a 12 by 12 fitness room behind the ladder truck that everybody squeezes into.
Yeah.
But to their end, when they do hand-to-hand combat agility, there's no space except we move the apparatus out, and they can use the apparatus floor to do training every once in a while when they have to do it. So having that space is invaluable.
Sure.
Yeah, we've been fortunate that, PEA will let us use their gym in their areas. But it would be nice to be able to work out any time during the day or night.
Yeah, I think the difference is probably about 600 square feet, because what they have is like 200 square feet, if that, and it's kind of makeshift space at the end of an apparatus bay. But this is actually, the space designed for that.
Selectwoman Belanger had a quick question.
The emergency operation room, if that's the right word for it, term for it, where will that stay downtown, or will that be moved to this building for now?
Currently downtown.
Right.
It would currently stay right where it is, right where you're familiar, upstairs.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
when we discuss
Okay, thank
renovation,
you.
rebuild.
I hadn't heard it mentioned, so I just wanted to
20
see
court.
what the status of that room is. Thank you.
So this moving off into, so we got the fire, covered that, moving here to shared space. This is for the PD. These are the kind of men's and women's locker rooms, bathrooms, break room, and so forth. So that's the center where the purple, I guess it's purple, is. Well, what's the next color if that's not, it's pinkish. And then down here you got the purple. You got dispatch and toilet for dispatch. Dispatch needs kind of its own, environment, if you will, because they can't leave. So they have a break room facility, kitchenette and so forth. And they got supervisor's office and a bathroom right there in dispatch. And then you go across the hall, and that's where your prosecutors and chief's office, kind of your administration, call it. This is your administrative offices. And then as you go around here, you get into detective interview rooms and sergeant offices. And then also they added, because we had it above the sally port, that they did put on here an outdoor deck on the second floor accessible. The theory behind that was, these folks in public safety work through a lot of stressful times and stressful calls and see a lot of things, and providing them a secure outdoor space to take a break, catch your breath on this outdoor deck, because it was available space because of the first floor. So anyone have any questions on those floor plans?
Dr. Zimmer?
So I was just, regarding dispatch, just to clarify what I started to ask you, but was unfair to do that while David was talking. Is that police dispatch only, or is that all dispatch, or are we going to have 2 dispatch stations? Can you just clarify that for me?
Sure. So we'll move all communications over to Continental, so that's police and fire.
Okay.
Yeah. And while we have this up here, another important part to make out is currently we have female locker room with 5 lockers in it. So clearly we need larger locker rooms as well. I just thought of that when I saw that.
Selectwoman Montreal, go ahead.
While you're, sorry.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm just curious, because you brought it up earlier about the juvenile interrogation room. So is that on the first floor next to, where is that located?
Yep, so that would be on the first floor in the holding area. They would have a sight and sound secure area for that.
Now, just out of curiosity, because I know they try to protect the, I don't know, you're not necessarily trying to expose a juvenile who's brought in, right? And
right.
So this is maybe a conversation for another day. I'm asking too much. You have a space for them.
Yes, so that's exactly the point.
Right,
so you obviously want to separate male-female prisoners. You also don't want any interaction with the juvenile whatsoever, sight and sound.
Okay.
No, that's a good question, thank you.
And on that first floor booking and on intake, there was, once we do process someone, as you follow the green all the way down, they can only go back out and then go out the front. So they can't get accidentally lost in any other part of the building. It's different than what we have now. We're walking prisoners past our clerks, our admin assistants, so it's not ideal where we are now. Also, you can see the evidence intake is right off of booking as well, so that really reduces that liability area where the officer has it, brings it in, and brings it right to the window and secures it that way. And I think, if there's any other questions with the first floor. When there's no one at the front desk, we have that other window to the side. You can see on the right, there's a little white rectangle that would be staffed, obviously, after hours and weekends. And there'll be a phone there to call somebody in off the road, too.
I'm going to grab this. Here's a question back here.
Please, and just your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Ken Birkenbush, 75A, Dewfields Road in Exeter. Is there an elevator in this building?
Mr. Sharples?
It's right here. It's right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it'd be all ADA accessible, elevator, and what I didn't say, very secured. You can't get very secured, cordoned off. You have to have authorization to get anywhere in this building, not just beyond the public. If you happen to get in one of the secured areas, you're only limited to that secured area. There's multiple secured access doors and access points, unlike the existing facility. Oh, and another feature, can you go up one before we get to the funding, the budget? Another neat feature here, you'll see, this is not space for the second floor. This is going to be open, so this aligns with the lobby and the public lobby and the vestibule from down below. So when you walk in, it'll be very natural light, lots of possible skylights and so forth. So a very attractive entrance. But years down the road, if ever needed, you could you could possibly use this additional second floor space and repurpose it for something else. But in the meantime, it'll, provide a nice public entrance to the facility. So just to take just looking, a couple more pictures, a couple more concepts. Like I said, this can change, but kind of the massing of the building, kind of covered walkway there on the front right. You'll see the police stations on the right. There's the public atrium you'll see in the middle, the center there with the glass, allowing a lot of natural light. There's no second floor there in that section. And then you move over to the left, and the far left, you'll see the entrance to the apparatus base. And then down below, the same kind of thing, fire station on your left, police on your right. And it's delineated with the white siding on this picture represents the fire substation, and then the brick represents the police section. Go ahead. And this would be the rear view up there, the covered deck above the sally port in the back, which I talked about, and the fire station's on the right, and the PD's on the left in the brick. And that's just another angle, the elevation on the bottom. Okay, so getting to the numbers, what does the $15,950,000 mean? So during this process, we came up with, numerous estimates. The inflation, labor and materials were constantly changing, as you know, with all of this, almost on a daily basis. So we continually updated them, plus with the fire chief and the police chief wanting to really sharpen their pencil and reduce the space and the square footage to just what's needed for now and into the 20-30 year horizon. We came up with a police station that is 16,285 square feet, and a fire substation 6,880 square feet. And correct me if I'm wrong, but back years in early 2000s, I think it was something like 30,000 something for the fire substation that was proposed. So give you a little, yeah, so a lot different, now this is adequate. This is very adequate space, as we've shown, to accommodate all the needs of a modern fire substation that will service the community well.
Can you just reiterate again, the current police station is how many square feet?
About 7,000, just under 7,000 square feet.
And the current 20 Court Street building?
17,700.
Yeah.
17,700. So right now it's about 11,000 with fire, and their the programming needs assessment based on modern facility, the employees they have, they needed about 22,000 square feet total, which existing Court Street plus the substation is about that. And then for police, it was about 18,000 programming, but they were able to reduce the space and work on it to be very comfortable with 16,285 square feet.
Right.
So, you're welcome. So the LBA hired a professional cost estimator, Mark Jobin, well-known in the industry, and he prepared this is the latest budget on the 6 Continental, and it's broken up into 2 parts. On top is it's broken in, the top is the site development, police station, fire station, design, contingencies, general conditions, and construction management, and below is all your soft costs and some other fixtures like signage and so forth. Everything's included. So when you look at and we had him do a low estimate and a high estimate, he's confident that it's going to be somewhere in between the low and the high. And that's how he presented these budgets. And they are broken up into each one. You can peel out the police station, what that costs. You can peel out the fire station of what's going to attribute to that cost. But the bottom line on the low, if you look down to right here, the low end, this line, this is current dollars. This line is current dollars. So the conceptual level project costs right now are, for the low end, are $12,929,000 and change, up to $13,870,000 and change, approximately about $558 to $599 a square foot. That's the low to high range of that. But we added escalation to this and recognizing inflation. So they said this, the buyout would be Q1 of 2024. So 6 Continental Drive, they estimate that the low end's going to be $14,864 million to $15,951,353 on the high end. So it was determined that $15,900,000 gets you the low end of the thing plus $1 million cushion, but that is also, another $2 million added to it because of inflation escalation that's anticipated. It's been a volatile. We're hopeful that that's not going to continue like it has been. So, these numbers could be affected, but the low end is $14,868,000. The warrant article is for $15,950,000, which is about $1 million more, which covers, there's a couple of alternates in here. Okay. Added cost for covered parking structure of the 13 spaces along the back, along police. There's an option to put a open, one side open, covered parking structure, so it'll eliminate, snow removal and so forth.
For police vehicles?
For police vehicles, okay. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. And maybe fire chief will sneak up there once in a while. Yes, for police vehicles. And then implementation of a net zero approach will add approximately 3 to 4%. If you take the high end and add 4%, take this low number, you add 4%, and you add the 375, you get to about 15,800 and change. So you're about $100,000 cushion on the low end to accommodate the entire program with the net zero approach and the structured parking.
So the 15,950, so to speak, includes the 375 for the spaces and also the 3 to 4% increase because
the 4%
for the net zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If relying on under the low budget. Mm-hmm. The low end to the high end, if it's high, then there's going to be some decisions mm-hmm. we're going to have to make and priorities you're going to have to assess. But that's pretty much with every project when you get the funding and then you get the bids and you figure it out from there.
So let me ask you if I may, because that leads to my next question. I believe when the consultant was here from LBA, they said the life estimate of the building, it's 30 years? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, they wouldn't commit to more than like 2050 or so. Yeah,
so 30 years.
They might have said 30 to 40 years, yeah.
So if we're building this for 30 to 40 years, will that also take into consideration, Chief, I don't know how much bigger equipment can get in 15 years, 20 years, but will we be able to, can we take into consideration when we're building this, the fact that you may have bigger equipment down the road, or also there may be more energy efficient initiatives that come up 15 or 20 years? Is that all going to be kind of considered when it's being built?
Do you want that?
Dave?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or Chief?
No, the answer is yes. We did consider that. And what the easy answer is, we don't believe with the current road structure we have, the Federal Department of Transportation is going to let us exceed 9.6. The doors that we're proposing on this building are 14 wide by 14 high, so it should far exceed anything we would need in the future. Apparatus bays are 18 foot wide. The current 20 Court Street is 14 feet wide. That's space available. So obviously you back a 9'6" truck in an 18-foot hole, there's space on both sides, and then there's space on both sides of the other piece of apparatus. So it affords us an 8 to 10 foot area to work between the apparatus. So the doors, as the today, the doors aren't hitting. So we're not chipping the paint off and banging the doors just because we open the truck. So all of that has been. The easy answers are height is plenty tall. We're talking 20-foot ceilings, and depth. This substation has a 50-foot deep engine bay that the engine would be 33 feet long. So there's room behind it to do a training activity or to take things off the engine and put it on the floor.
Okay, good.
So,
thank you.
So thought was put in for future size.
So that's all I have for tonight, but I wanted to give the chiefs an opportunity to, have any last parting words if you'd want, or last final thoughts, if you have anything else that I missed, or?
I was just up, jump in, Chief, if you want.
Well, you know what, why don't we let the we have a few members of the BRC here, members of the public, when we give them an opportunity for questions. Mr. Ziegman. Chris, just for the record, your name and address, please.
Absolutely. Christopher Zigmont, at 22 Crestview Drive, and I am a member of BRC and also the Sustainability Advisory Committee, which is not an easy name to say. Very thorough presentation, which is great. I think I have sort of two overlapping concerns that relate to each other. And I'm reflecting on some of the things early in Mr. Sharple's presentation. We referred to the master plan from 2018, which is great. The two opening lines of the master plan, when we talk about our vision of Exeter, lean heavily on our natural resources and our environmental concerns. So one of my concerns leans on the sustainability effort and how it overlaps with the budget. I do express concern that it's an add-on or an alternative thing that could be added for 3 or 4%. I also think that net zero ready is about the lowest possible acceptable thing that you can put into a building for 30 to 50 year. And the CIP is listed as a 50-year building, interestingly enough. So the discussion tonight is a 25 to 30-year building. Net zero ready means it's just ready to plug and play at some time when we go back to the taxpayers to ask for more money and rebates and grants and things like that to pursue some alternative energy. So it's plug and play, ready to go, and hopefully we're going to pursue a tight envelope like it sounds like we will. But we also know construction projects nearly never come in on budget. I can't think of one that ever has in my life, but I'm sure it's happened somewhere. And so I'm concerned that this kind of lives below the line, that the bare minimum acceptable sustainable effort for a 30 to 50 year project is easily scratched off. So that's where my two concerns kind of converge. So I was wondering if the chiefs or Dave want to comment on those two. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any of you, or?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand those concerns, definitely share them as well. During the process, the Energy Committee wanted to make sure this was a Sustainability Advisory Committee, so I had that added. That's how they presented it, but I think if it does come in, it's the old crystal ball. We don't have a crystal ball, but when, voters vote the approval, then you go out and you get bids back, and if they exceed what you have for funding, then you have to make choices. But I don't think necessarily you have to, I don't make those choices at that time, but somebody has to make those choices of what do you cut to, and you don't necessarily have to just cut net zero. You could go down, because this is a mid-level building construction. It's got metal framing, bricks, it's bricks and mortar. It's not stick built. So you could always make those trade-offs, some of those trade-offs with materials, but keep the building envelope, extremely energy efficient and meet those goals. So, it definitely is a concern, but I don't know how we solve it right now. However, I have been looking for funding for those. I have Kristen, combing the Inflation Reduction Act for any grants for, energy efficiencies that will apply to this building. And also about a couple months ago, I was talking to Russ, and he mentioned that we had funding from Riverwoods for $150,000 that they gave the town as part of an agreement in 2008 to fund a fire substation at their facility out on White Oak Drive off of Kingston Road. And I wrote to the chief executive officer, chief financial officer, Kevin Goyette, and asked them if they'd be willing for us to utilize this $150,000 toward this project. And I got back a letter last week in the affirmative that they would be willing to do that. Great. So they will allow us, so that will that will get us, I'm not saying it's, sustainable, that's not my kind of, it's a policy decision later on, but they were generous enough, Riverwoods was generous enough to allow us, they're coming to the planning board to amend their agreement this Thursday night, and as long as the planning board's on board with it, which I would hope they would be, we can use those funds. And for fire station use, and in the event it doesn't, for some reason, that doesn't go, it will be for fire station use, so it can be used at our existing facility or the Six Continental. So I think coupled with 150,000, that's a little bit of a shot in the arm for us, and I think there's some energy, energy grants out there through the new IRA, but we're going to have to wait until the secretary comes up with the rules, supposedly in Q1 of 2023.
Dr. Swan?
Stay right there, David. I lost my attention for just a second because I was making a calculation about I was putting 4% on the high number, 15,951, right? Which is, I think that's 600.
640.
It's above 600,000. It's about 600,000 or so.
I was doing the low.
You were doing it on the low, but I was taking the worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's between 5 and 600.
Right. But I was doing that calculation, and while I was doing that, you actually said something very important about Riverwood, so I wanted to get back to that for just a moment. But before I get back to that, taking Chris Zygmunt's point, granted, we have to be judicious in what we put forward as a warrant and what we ask from the voters, right? And we have to make some sort of a calculation as to what's likely to pass and what's not likely to pass. I get that. But I think to Chris Zygmunt's point, in an ideal world, we would include some of these energy, I don't know, the lingo.
Yeah, and I think, I like, Dave, what you said, and I think, Chris, I totally agree with you.
In the warrant.
Where you get thrown off until you have an explanation like you just gave, Dave, when you see alternates and you see those two initiatives, immediately, without listening to you or seeing this presentation or asking the question like Chris did, you're assuming those are the first two on the chopping block.
Yeah.
So maybe if we, when we could revise this sheet so that folks understand that, even though it's an alternate to what they had up there, but it's included in the 15.9 and not necessarily the two things that'll get chopped if there's...
I'm not sure, you know better than me, Nico, but I'm not reading it that way. I'm reading it that...
Well, I asked Dave 20 minutes ago if that was included.
Maybe I'm missing something. Am I missing
Unless
something?
I misunderstood you.
Maybe I misunderstood, but
So
I was under the impression that if the estimates are poor or if the circumstances are bad, then it's going to cost 15.9, but that doesn't assume including the energy efficiency standards. Did I?
The high end. No, you didn't misunderstand. I said if you take the low end, 14.8, add 4% plus the 375,
That's
you get
the
to about
15.9.
15.8.
Yeah.
You get about 111,000 short of 15. That's like 15,850. So that's where I was thinking, because we were hopeful that it wouldn't escalate that much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's escalators built in. If that was 2022, today's dollars, that's 12.9, 13.8. We're $2 million over the high end of 22.
So then I misunderstood you. So if it comes in on the 15.9 on the high end, that doesn't include the 375 and the 3 to 4%.
It won't.
And that'd be another 600,000.
Correct.
That's my point.
Yes, if it comes in at the very high end in Q1 24 with inflation, you would add those together and it would add about $1 million, so you'd be at like 16.9. That was the absolute high end. But at some point, you got to make a policy decision on what you feel. We have a low end, we have a high end, and felt confident.
I think that's the point I was trying to make, which I'm not so sure that. I just wanted to clarify an earlier comment that you had made about it. So that raises then the question of, okay, what do you put on the warrant for an amount? I mean, how important is it to you to pursue these energy efficiency things, the coverage, et cetera? So I just want to, that's a difficult decision.
Sure.
Largely for the select board to make. And then the other thing was the Riverwoods thing, and I missed something you said early, but I sat on the planning board when one of the middle phases went through, and maybe this is what you were speaking to, this was before your time. And, there was a lot of concern about ambulance runs and the like to Riverwoods even early on, and that was before they built their last building. So we negotiated as a planning board the potential to put an ambulance station there. You probably know that from the notes, right?
Yep.
So while it is gracious of Riverwoods to accommodate whatever request you were referring to, it was actually implied in the approvals that were made, 15 years ago or something like that. So I just wanted to make that point, but maybe that's what you were exactly speaking to.
That's what I tried to say. It was a condition of approval mandated by the planning board to provide funding for a fire substation at that location. However, that's the agreement. So they're under, if we don't go forward with that, I don't believe Riverwoods is under any obligation to give us that funding for anything.
Agreed.
When I said being generous, I do believe that they were. They said allowing us to, releasing us of that responsibility, because through this whole process, except the 2007 study, was it the 2007 study that said western part of town? Nothing ever, all our modern staffing and analysis never suggested any time in the near future, considering a site in that location of town. And the site on Epping Road, 6 Continental, addresses that issue and others being north of the site. So we just didn't see the town wasn't going to pursue. So we asked them to, move that funds, which they didn't have. They could say no, but they were gracious enough to do that.
Good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Just one last budget-related topic, which we've had some conversations here and there about this. I think, and I recognize the difficulty of the task. This is a sizable amount and very compelling arguments for both police and fire to get what they need to support our town without question. I think the challenge will be, and my ask would be for some level of ultimate transparency for voters, is at some point right behind this is going to have to be some amount of money to either renovate or raise Court Street. And it's hard to, it's very difficult to consider this without considering that, right? And so my ask to the select board would be to try to come up with some language, if we do go to warrant with this, that is very clear and very transparent, that there's some number out there that's going to be right on the heels of this, because it won't be too long that if we can't back the large apparatus in there now, we're not going to be able to next week or the week after when the police department moves up there. So that's my only comment there.
Great, thank you. Dr. Rowan.
Thank you. I really appreciate the work the chiefs did on these conceptual drawings. Having worked as a psychologist and in secure psychiatric facilities and forensic unit, I'm very aware of confidentiality and safety. And when I go for a budget committee meeting in the police station, it is not safe or secure, and it's very evident. And how they keep evidence uncontaminated by all and sundry who go through there is a real miracle. I did want to ask specifically about the substation and the staffing for the 2 stations. When I talk with voters about this, the question they always ask is, well, when are they going to hire more people? You know that this is really, they know they're going to want to hire more staff, and it won't be way down the road, but it'll be right away. So I think it'd be helpful to have an understanding of if there are 3 firefighters, EMTs in one location, 3 in another, if it's a minimum 6 per shift, and you've got certain kinds of apparatus one place and certain kinds another. How does that actually work out? Could you just walk us through that, Chief, if you would, please?
Sure.
Thank you, Judy. So what would happen if the town votes in the affirmative and we built a substation? We would split the forces, as we've discussed. Initially, we believe we would move 3 people to Epping Road. 3 people allows us to have a company on an engine that can actually work. So if a call for fire comes in that area, we can send the engine. The entire station would go on that call. It would investigate, do whatever it needed to. In addition to them, the station downtown would be heading that way, much like if you're downtown, you see 2 engines or an engine on a ladder today. If we're on the scene and find out it's not a fire, we would return the downtown unit, it would return to Court Street, and the Epping Road station will continue. Vice versa. Downtown rolls out on Portsmouth Avenue, we'd respond in with the engine, either via 101 to exit 11 or whatever routes appropriate to get downtown. The 4 people, or on a day we're running short at 6, the 3 people would arrive on the first piece. 3 people on the other engine would supplement until the incident was mitigated. Medical call, we do about 2,500 medical calls. 2 people at each station would be assigned to the ambulance. They would take the ambulance, leaving a 3rd person behind. We currently utilize callback. We bring back off-duty personnel depending on the amount that are tied up on the call. We ask for the appropriate amount to come back. So if an ambulance call sent out 2, we put out a tone for 2 off-duty people. They'd respond to the station. Now that 1 person left behind has 2 more, so now we have another crew of 3. We can then man the engine or whatnot. We do the same thing. Then there's some reasons there's some economy there. We're only paying for time utilized. We're not paying for extra bodies. We're not staffing to 8, 9, 10 people. People say, well, we'll be at 10 in no time. Well, we didn't go from 5 to 7 in no time. We went from 5 to 7 in 16, 17 years. Will we hire more people? I've told you this 100 times. I cannot stand here and take the no new tax pledge. There will be a chief that will come before you in the future that says it's time to move to 8 people per stage, 8 people per shift. I guarantee it at some point in time. But will it be me? No. Will it be in the next 2 to 3, 4 years? No. We're gonna have 7 people per shift. We fully understand the angst the town has had just to get to that level. Judy also asked some great questions. So since I have the mic, I might as well cover them now. How do we divide up the town? And that's a great question because again, we put a lot of emphasis on this 4-minute response time. We've done a tremendous amount of analysis with some help from outside independent sources, so we know where our 4 minutes is from downtown. Well, we also know where our 4 minutes is from that Continental Drive station, and it gets us right up the access road to the high school, so the long road out in there adds some response time, but we're at Blue Hawk Drive in 4 minutes. We're on Watson Road in 4 minutes. We're down on Newfields Road in 4 minutes. We can actually be all the way to exit 11 in 4 minutes. So we protect that piece of 101. We will be responding back down into Exeter from Epping Road. So we're going to be pushing back down to RJ's, to Lincoln Street, to Main Street in 4 minutes from the Epping Road station to supplement. We do so many back-to-back calls. I'll stand in front of you and guarantee you that the ambulance out of Central, out of the 20 Court Street station, will be tied up on a medical call. The second call will be handled by the Epping Road station. It'll be just rolling in downtown. It might have to go all the way to Hampton Road to pick up a patient on High Street Hampton Road. It is no different than today when we're at Riverwoods, and the Riverwoods call volume that was predicted when I was hired in 2005, and Riverwoods started the Ridge, and then it became the Boulders. Some number and around the 20% of the call volume was predicted, and that's right about where we are today. We do about 2,500 medical calls, and somewhere plus or minus 10 or 20 of 250 is the Riverwood complex. And I'm not indicting them. They're a great community partner. They work very well with the fire department. Their staff helps us immensely when we go out there because they have skilled staff. But the truth is, we go out there 250 plus times a year, so there's a lot of volume to that side of town. The Epping Road station reaches the Riverwoods facility within 30 seconds of the downtown station. It is still quicker. Google it yourself. 20 Court Street to 6 Riverwoods Drive, it says it's a minute shorter than the Epping Road station, but we can cut crosslots and make up time. Shameless plug, if we ever fix the bridge to nowhere on Garrison Lane, we can scoot out out of the industrial park and cut right across to Brentwood Road. So I don't know if that'll ever be built, but that would absolutely be a great access for us coming out of that industrial park, going to that side of town. But Judy's in. We're not going to buy fire apparatus. We have 4 engines in a ladder truck. We're going to move an engine out there. We're not going to buy new. There is a very good chance that if the taxpayers do vote to support a substation, you and Russ and I are going to sit down and discuss, is it time to keep a 3rd ambulance? And when I say keep it, we would make a decision to perhaps not trade in the ambulance we have. I met with you 2 weeks ago. You approved $283,000 for a new ambulance. The company we gave the bid to is giving us a whopping $8,000 in trade for an ambulance that costs $280,000. So it may be time, if we have room to store it, if we have a station, that the 3rd ambulance would better suit the town to do that volume of calls we're currently giving away to mutual aid. At last count, we have given away, and I'll put that in quotes, we have asked our mutual aid partners to assist us in ambulance revenue that's generated in about the $40,000 range. So that's real money when you start talking about revenue in the ambulance account and how we can turn that back. If we had a 3rd ambulance, the potential exists that we could recover most of that ourselves. So that's why we're going to make a really tough decision. Do we not trade the ambulance and keep that $8,000 trade and make extra revenue? So we're not buying trucks. We're not hiring people. We're going to split up the town. What makes sense on paper today is the Epping Road station will respond out toward exit 11. It would definitely cover Newfields Road, so we're not going under the railroad trestle. It'll cover all the way to the high school, all the way to the Brentwood town line. We're going to make decisions on Kingston Road and Riverwoods. I think it can be responded to better from downtown. And then, of course, everything east of us, all our friends that live Hampton, High, Ashbrook, all that are going to be serviced by the current 20 Court Street fire station. But all great questions.
Thank you. Dr. Zwan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for indulging me. I know it's been a long time, but it's an important thing. I have a couple of points I want to make. One is that I think the discussion tonight reflects something, which is that we've spent fairly little time talking about the police department because it's so evident. So I'm good at stating the obvious, but it's for the viewers at home. It is so evident that we're overdue for a new police department, that there's no controversy about that, so we're not even talking about it, right? So I feel bad for the police chiefs for having to sit through this long presentation because, I mean, it's a no-brainer. We desperately need the police station, so we're not even talking about it a lot. So that's my point, and I just want to reiterate that. So for the voters, so there's no controversy in my mind about that, right? So that's number one. Number two is it hasn't been talked about here, and we don't, obviously need to get into the nitty gritty of a design and all of that. But I just want, having served on the planning board and knowing that this building is going to be off of Epping Road and not visible. And yet it is an important town function. If this was a private entity, the planning board would be talking about pedestrian access, bicycle access, just accessibility in general. And we haven't done a good job in Exeter about that on Epping Road, I would submit. So that needs to be kept in mind in the long run, since we do have a fair amount of residential development going on in that area as well. So, I mean, I would submit that that needs to be factored in, at least in the long run, in terms of, creating some access and visibility. And then the last thing was already a point made by Chris Zygmunt, which is, great transparency about what future needs of the fire department are going to be, and that's why we're spending so much time talking about with the fire department, because even just we're going to have to rejigger things within 20 Court. There are going to be costs associated with that in a way that is similar to, let's say, Parks and Rec moving from one building to another. So just a lot of transparency about that is just paramount.
All good points.
So thank you for
all good points.
Indulging me on that.
So I want to comment on a couple of things quickly. We've had conversations here at the select board level. Obviously, there was a public meeting in May. The facilities committee met. And I think it was agreed, there were different ideas thrown around about should there be 2 warrant articles, 1 warrant article, and the decision, was made to suggest 1 warrant article as we're discussing this evening, with the idea that there will be a phase 2. There obviously has to be a phase 2, and I think Chief Wilking, I'll paraphrase earlier in your presentation, or maybe it was Dave, I'm sorry, the fire department was going to pause, should this pass, to allow the fire department and the town to assess 20 Court Street and determine what the needs of the fire department would be, and obviously come back to the voters in several years for that phase 2. But certainly, I think, Mr. Dean, when crafting the warrant article, when we get there, as much transparency. And we've discussed this with the chiefs. We've discussed it with Mr. Sharples, and I think that that point is well taken and is transparent and as informative as we can be. The better educated the voters will be, and perhaps get this passed. So. And then the last thing I have to say, if there's anybody that can secure grants, it's our town planner. So I have all the confidence in the world that if there's a grant out there in the future, Mr. Sharples will be aggressive at getting it. So.
Yeah, can I just add that, just please keep in mind too about the sidewalks is that our town planner has been working on the sidewalk plans out there, and it's a work in progress.
Great.
I don't know if you want to elaborate any more on that and the grants you've had for that.
Plug the survey.
Oh, the Bike and Ped Master Plan survey? Yeah, there is a survey for our Bike and Ped Master Plan. It's on our website on the Bike and Ped Master Plan on the planning website. There's a survey, so go and talk about that. But to get to Dr. Swan's point about Epping Road, and I agree, when I got here, Epping Road had no pedestrian facilities whatsoever. It's just completely automobile oriented. Their curb cuts ranging from 35 feet. I think the largest one out there was like 190 feet. I mean, curb cut meaning, open areas where cars can there's no rhyme or reason they can enter. And it pretty much a consistent theme from Brentwood Road to Route 101 interchange at Exit 9. So I secured a TAP grant, and we put sidewalks from the Brentwood Road up to Aroma Joe's. So now that area in front of Great Bay, kids and so forth, has pedestrian access. When the town put in Ray Farmstead Road, the first half, that has sidewalks down to Epping Road. And when the Gateway project came in, they are building sidewalks along their frontage across from Mobile Station. And right now, Noria Energy is under construction, and there's going to be a piece of sidewalk there at the lights to the south, a couple hundred feet. But then also the town, we did a corridor study of the entire Epping Road, and we laid out sidewalks along that corridor. And right now the TIF, the voters funded the TIF, approved a TIF to widen and do some automobile safety issues, but also provide a sidewalk from the Gateway down to the lights.
Oh, good.
So, and possibly connect. There's some right-of-way issues that we're working on, but I guess the short of it is we're very cognizant. I 100% completely agree with you on that. We're working on pedestrian and bicycle access out there. So, but nothing happens overnight, as you know. But we're working on it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Excellent points from the public. Excellent questions. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Comments?
I have, just a few observations. I think that we're in a really good spot in terms of crafting what we're going to ultimately pass and think through what we're going to put on the warrant. I think it's been really helpful to sort of see this broken out and then hear the comments back. I especially want to flag the net zero approach and how we're going to incorporate that into costs. I think that that's going to be something that's incredibly important. And then I am really interested. I think we've all been supportive of this plan and that, the direction that it's going, but I want to be really thoughtful about how we present it to the public, and have a thoughtful, coordinated strategy, because it's a big project. And we just saw something, that was half this much get voted down. totally different uses, but, I think that taxpayers are paying attention. I would respectfully disagree with the assessment that the police, that it's clear to everybody that the police station needs to be rehabbed. I think that there are really strong arguments for why we need to do that. I think when we're all sort of steeped in this, we can see it. But I do think that we're going to have a compelling argument for that as well. I think that the fire department, I think that there's a ton of goodwill that we all have for this kind of project. And so I would be very interested in how we're going to package this to voters, because I think it's really easy to assume that everybody thinks the way that we do and has been following this in the way that we have. And I do not think that that is how the average voter in this town is interacting with this project.
Thank you.
So that's my observation.
So, Mr. Dean, I was going to ask either you or the finance director. I think we would be remiss if we didn't get into, we're asking for almost $16 million. Could you talk a little bit about the debt service and what that would entail for the taxpayer, the voter, the citizen of Exeter, and maybe, what the debt service is going to look like and what's coming off? And I know you could probably do that quickly.
Sure. So we would be looking at a 20-year bond for this particular project, and the estimates that we've given are 4% as far as interest rates go. As we know, interest rates are climbing, and so we're not looking at what we have been borrowing at, which is south of 3%, even for a 20-year bond. But for a 4% bond at 20 years for the $15,950,000 amount, we'd be looking at a tax rate impact of 64 cents per thousand, and that works out to $192 for a $300,000 home. So those are essentially the tax impacts.
And in the next several years, do we have any significant debt coming off of the books?
We have a few $100,000 coming off the books in the next 4 years.
Okay.
So we do have some.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that those numbers are going to be important to have super solid and easy to explain.
Okay. I agree. Any other questions? No?
No, I agree with everything that Molly just said, so I don't need to repeat it.
I also think, as I'm sort of thinking this through, and I want to be involved in how we, talk about this, but the liability impact that we would be under if something were to go wrong, I think is incredibly compelling. And so it might be worthwhile taking a peek at what other towns have faced, and if other towns have faced any sorts of lawsuits, or, because that would be a huge talking point in terms of, okay, well, we can do this now, or we can face the risk of potentially paying for something, some sort of mistake or something like that. I don't know if that data is available, but I would be interested. Yeah, okay.
Chief.
So the town planner just hit me in the back of the head and said, get up and shamelessly plug the open house. So what we'd like to do, and I hope I'm not stealing the town manager's thunder later in the show, but we'd like to offer to the public, obviously to the select board and the entire BRC, on November 15, starting about 4:30 in the afternoon, we'd like to open the fire police station up to anybody that'd like to come down. The plan today is to have that training room, EOC area set up as kind of the main area people will come to. There'll be light refreshments there. The plan is to either have a PowerPoint running that depicts all the phases we've been through, or if more appropriate, those walkthroughs that Bob Glowacki really helped with that kind of show the station. But then what we'd like to do is have police leadership and fire leadership take people around in small groups to both the PD side and the fire side and show them what their current facility facility offers and some of the deficiencies. And we're trying to pull that off in a couple hours. We're respectful of the fact that BRC has a full budget meeting, I think at 6:30 for water sewer. So if they'd like to arrive as early as we could, we can get them through, but we're willing to hang out and allow members of the public to kind of have a look at their facility. I know we tried the public hearing, if you will, or the open house at the town hall. Mixed results. I don't think we reached the public that we were hoping to reach. It was early in the process. Now I think with some more outreach, I know there's this social media blitz started today on this. So I think that would be very, very helpful in helping us explain, the need. And not to be coy, but when you talk about trying to build a compelling reason, when somebody calls 911, I would ask everybody to do their best to look at their watch and hold your breath for 4 minutes. And tell me how far you make it. Because that's what happens when somebody calls 911 and we're over 4 minutes away, the outcomes aren't great. Somebody has a small fire in their home in 4 minutes, a whole room is involved. Outcome is not great. You look at the history of this town, just in the short time I've been here, and you point to downtown fires where we're there in 4 minutes or less, and we've had what we consider, some may differ, great successes. There's a 7-unit multifamily on Front Street that we lost 2 units. There's a pizza place that has yet to reopen, for very myriad of reasons, but that entire multifamily could have burnt to the ground. You turn that around and look at fires we've had on Old Town Farm Road, on Drinkwater Road, areas of 4 minutes or greater, the places in the basement before we get there. So far different results when we start looking at what happens within that 4 minute mark. And I would argue there is absolutely a compelling reason, without a doubt, to move our forces out to service more of the town.
Thank you.
Chief, could you repeat the start time for that event, please? Because
4:30.
I went right to noticing it was a
I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, as most of us, so about 4:30 we'll open the doors. But if you showed up at 4 o'clock, I'm sure we'd accommodate you. Like I said, we're just trying to, we know everybody has a busy schedule. We're trying not to tie up all of our folks for hours and hours and hours on end. But I'll tell you right now, we don't want to turn anybody away. If it's 6 o'clock and they show up and they haven't had a tour, we're going to give them a tour of the building. But we'd like to start at around 4:30.
And can I what you just said was very compelling. And I know our Exeter TV, not to keep adding to their schedule of things to do, but they've been doing interviews with our boards and committees, explaining the responsibilities to try to get more people to come in to volunteer. And I would like other people's feedback on this, to have the chief interviewed and share some of those stories. That could be...
I'm pretty shy. I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, no. I just think that those are the points that we need to really get out there.
And it goes back to the more we can communicate by various
methods. So if you would be willing to do that, and maybe you could talk to Mr. Glowacki and do a video with some of those stories that you just said.
Sure, thank you.
Except I think he only gives you 2 minutes, Chief.
Yeah, that is impossible. That is impossible.
Coming out of tonight and hearing the board and the various comments, we want to hear from you. So if you want to send us an email, suggest approaches that we might take to better publicize this project. Obviously, we're moving ahead with the open house. Thought that was a good idea. We're looking for other good ideas, so by all means, just let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll try to incorporate as many of those things as possible.
Okay, we will. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Our next discussion item, Chief Poulin. Give a police department operations update. We had Chief Wilking at our last meeting.
Oh, that's right.
And now we have Chief Poulin.
Yes.
I'll be shorter, I think.
What do you mean?
So our staffing, we're proud to report that we're fully staffed at this point. That's for officers and dispatch. Currently, we have one dispatcher in training and 2 officers in training. One officer is just about to get off training. Officer Garcia is about to get off training. Officer Joseph recently graduated the police academy, and he's on his 3rd or 4th week of training. And again, back to the swearing-ins. Now that I mentioned these newer officers, you all kind of have an idea who I'm talking about. So that again, is a great thing. The 2 officers that will be training are slated to attend the academy in January, so they will not be solo until about May. So even though on paper we're fully staffed, we're still incurring overtime expenses until they can all be solo. We're awaiting funding still from the congressional directed spending submitted last year for the body cameras, so we're just waiting for that. For accreditation, we're also proud to report that we just enrolled into CALIA National Accreditation, so we got that ball rolling. It's a 3-year process, but we're very confident we can do it a lot less. Exeter PD was state accredited over a decade ago, but we do have our policies and general orders very much intact and in line with what they're going to be looking for. Promotions, you just saw Lieutenant Devin West has begun as our 2nd lieutenant. He oversees the patrol functions, and Lieutenant Bolick is now going to focus on professional standards and accreditation. And our comfort dog, Maple, is still training with Detective Texera. They're both doing very good with each other. Maple has already attended several outings, National Night Out, the UFO Festival, and has also been at the first day of school at Main Street School, and has been at the Phillips Exeter Academy for one of their staff meetings. So they're doing very good. And that's my report.
Terrific. Any questions or comments for Chief Poulin?
No, just thanking you again for bringing the swearing-in in front of us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I think it's great for the community to see.
it is. Thanks.
Chief,
And we
thank you.
enjoy it.
Deputy Chief, thank you as well.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dean.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the tax rate and the fund balance discussion for 2022. We've put together an analysis in the packet, and I want to acknowledge both Corey Stevens, our finance director, and Melissa Roy, the assistant town manager, who assisted with this conversation. We sat down and went through in great detail what our recommendations would be to you tonight. So the 2022 recommendation is to apply $1 million to lower the town share of the tax rate, and we'll get into that a little bit as far as the worksheets go as to what the rationale for that is. The application of this amount will result in a town tax rate of approximately $6.02 per thousand for the next tax billing cycle, and that's an increase of 23 cents per thousand over the October 2021 rate, and would result in an increase of $69.94 for a $300,000 home. Keep in mind the town share of the overall rate is approximately 24%, so taxpayers may see an additional increase in their bills when the school tax rates, state education tax, and county tax is figured into the bill. Just some notations on the tax rate. The net taxable value of the town has increased 0.85%. That's down a little bit from 1.01% last year. The town's gross general fund appropriations exclusive of the fund balance in 2022 totaled $20,917,800 for the general fund. In 2021, these appropriations totaled $20,153,701. And then FY22 revenues were relatively flat and included weaker building permit revenues. We're trying to get to $275,000, but that's a sort of an open question at this point whether we'll make it. And then the loss of the health trust surplus, where they did not return any surplus to the towns this year, and then as well as a surplus dividend from Primex. So those are just some notes on that. If you look at the second page of the discussion, you can see we did a couple of different analyses. One is, the first was $800,000, applying $800,000 to lower the rate. And the second analysis was applying the $1 million to lower the rate. And you can see that the excuse me, the audited tax rate setting fund balance is $6,773,350. And you deduct out of that the amount of 2022 voted from fund balance of $478,395, which leaves you the available $6,294,955. So you can compare the two numbers, withdrawing $800,000 or using $800,000 to lower the rate, and then or using $1 million to lower the rate, and you come up with a pretty similar number at the end. One of the important points about this is that with $800,000, using $800,000 in fund balance to lower the tax rate, you'd end up with remaining fund balance of 8.58%, which is within the 5 to 17% that we try to maintain. So it meets that target. And the $1 million is the same, just a slightly lower percentage, 8.27%. So we feel like for this year, we could go to $1 million and not lose too much ground on retaining the appropriate amount of fund balance.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. If there are no questions or comments, and then the board is fine with this recommendation, Mr. Dean, are you looking for a motion this evening?
Yes.
Okay.
And the motion would be to allow the use of $1 million to lower the 2022 tax rate.
Right. So then I would entertain a motion to apply $1 million from the available fund balance to lower the town share of the 2022 tax rate.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, excuse me, the last discussion item is the town office second floor renovation. Is that you or Ms. Roy?
That's Ms. Roy.
Okay.
I'll gladly hand this off.
Gee, thanks. No, I'm just kidding. Some of you mentioned that you couldn't see in the packet very well, so I did print out on 11 by 17 some of the plans for what we're talking about.
And I was at someone, so thank you very much.
You're welcome, no problem. And I'm actually going to put my own glasses on. So just to talk about the project a little bit and what we're talking about. Essentially, the HR office right now is a shared office space between the HR assistant, who is a full-time position, and the HR director, who, myself, is also the assistant town manager. It makes it very challenging to have confidential conversations as a department head, but also a department that has to focus very specifically on confidentiality. In the discussions with the town manager and myself, we reviewed lots of different options within the building to come up with some ideas, and it was finally decided that using the lobby area, I guess I would say, in front of the HR office and the town manager's office, and the lost space on the stairwell may be the best opportunity to keep the assistant town manager's office near to the town manager's office, since we pretty much communicate on an hourly basis. We had met with the maintenance director and the DPW, as well as Emmanuel Engineering, to have a discussion on what that would look like and how that could be done. There were tests and pilot holes drilled to make sure that the structure could be supported from the base. And this is what we've come up with. So if you look at the packet that I gave you tonight, and there's a lower right-hand picture with the number 1 on it, that's going to basically be what I'm going to talk about here for a few minutes. You can see on the right-hand side, towards the bottom, you have what look like stairs. These are the stairs that are right here, this small 3 or 4 steps right here. Essentially, 2 offices would be constructed, one of which would span the open space over the stairway while continuing to keep the proper and code enforceable head height all the way up the stairs. You would walk in front of the planning office. Instead of there being it would be all open, it would become a hallway. You would take a left where the bathrooms, town manager, planner, it would become another hallway with entrance into 2 office spaces, which you can see here. We have spoken with the DPW director and the director of maintenance. There is $35,000 left in their $100,000 project budget for FY22 that they could put towards this project. Currently, they are very conservatively estimating that they would like to use $35,000 from this year's project budget and potentially $15,000 from FY23.
Is that 1.5?
1.5. Okay. So from the FY23 project budget, which would include building the 2 structures, some HVAC, and also making it look like it is part of the original building. We talked about we would be removing the banisters, but preserving them in the basement to make sure that if they wanted to be put back up or any of those things, this would be built with the minimal amount of change to the existing structure and allow us 2 more office spaces, which are desperately needed. Unfortunately, all of the quotes have not come in yet, so that is the best estimate that maintenance could give us right at the moment. But they do expect them, because it's such a large project, they're getting 3 quotes. They do expect that in the next week or 2.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Roy?
Did they give you a time frame on how long it would take to accomplish this?
That is also part of what we're waiting for in the quotes. When we get these quotes from construction companies and asking how long it will take. Okay. So I don't have that.
I'm going to throw a logistical question if I may follow up, Mr. Chair. So $35,000 to start it and then $15,000 next year. Does that sound like it's a logical approach? And the reason why I'm asking is because it's already the end of October.
Yeah.
So if we're waiting, we don't have a meeting for 3 weeks, so we won't even bring this back up at least for 3 weeks. If the project starts in December, my initial thought was if there's a shortfall, I was going to ask the board to consider using that shortfall or covering the shortfall with ARPA funds if that's
it is an
allowable expense under the terms. But I don't know, I still might do that just because there's a budget that we do, a general budget for that, right? And if we're already going to dip into next one and we can just fund this, I would, if we all agree to this approach, then okay. I'm kind of talking in circles, sorry, thinking out loud.
I would be open to that if we could get, I mean, I know you're working on a very conservative quote that really, at this point.
Yeah, sorry, I am thinking out loud. It's
That's
just
okay.
getting this information.
Absolutely. As soon as we get it, we will bring it to you. It certainly would make the maintenance department's lives easier to not have to try to split it up between 2 fiscal years, certainly, and would make the project go quicker if you would consider whatever the shortfall ends up being, and we would have to bring that back to you. But yes.
I just as soon if we're going to vote on this at some point in the very near future, I would like to get this project completed as soon as possible. So,
with as little interruption to services as possible.
Absolutely,
so this is a real busy area up here.
Absolutely, but it still has to be done to fulfill our other obligations or needs, I should say. So, how much traffic? I mean, other than this room. I wonder how much traffic we actually have, and they still have the elevator. So even to be doing the closing in part, if that's what's decided to do. There's the elevator, so.
There is the elevator. I know when we talked about this recently, we talked about finding a contractor that could potentially do some of the work on weekends or the majority of the work on the weekends. And we're still, again, waiting to hear what something like that would look like, but that is my understanding, that's the goal.
Yeah, so, but with the elevator, you'd still have access to this floor.
Oh, of course, yep.
So, and thank you, that's another good point. It's just, okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for the larger. I did try, honestly, I don't like to waste paper, but I tried 3 different screens and monitors, and it wasn't helping.
Selectwoman Gilman.
Well, you know that I really don't like this.
I know.
But I don't have an alternative to offer you.
Right.
Well, I have, but you've turned them all down. The only things that I have to say, this is much better than what was actually put up.
Yes, that absolutely.
But we had talked then about having some daylight or next to daylight come in.
Yeah.
And I see this note about reusing the window that was there.
We've already talked to them about taking that out, and we're talking about going to an antique salvage yard for some transoms.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
The HDC was here talking about replacement windows with an applicant, and we told them, no, you can't have that, or that's not appropriate, I should say.
Yeah.
That's not appropriate. We walk out of the room, and there's this window. It's completely not appropriate.
No, so you
heard me on that one.
Oh, yeah, we emailed them already to let them know.
Okay, so that's all I can say is it's really how it gets funded in the end.
Any other comments or questions? So I guess come back. I agree with Selectwoman Belanger. The sooner we can get this done, the better for that department and folks who need to meet with you.
Yep, my plan is to come back in the next meeting if you'll have me.
Of course we will.
Yes. And the banister part, we really do need to make sure it's gets stored, because I'm not going to go back to 1960 something, but something very precious disappeared. So we do want to make sure we're we're doing that, please. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, jumping into regular business, Selectwoman Gilman, we have 1 veterans credit.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to approve a veterans credit in the for map 52, lot 37, in the amount of $2,000 for the tax year 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
There's also a reminder that we need to sign the MS1 or review the MS1.
We have several permits and approvals. The first of which is from the Exeter Area General Federation of Women's Clubs, who is looking for or requesting the use of a small framed lawn sign measuring 21 by 18 inches that would be placed along the roadsides in the Exeter area, and that would be advertising their annual Women's Club's Yuletide Fair. This is the 43rd year that the organization has held this event as a fundraiser. They're requesting that these signs be put out on November 13th and removed by November 20th. And they'd like to put 1 larger sign to advertise the event at the corner of Guinea Road and Hampton Road for the same dates mentioned above. Are there any questions or comments?
My only comment is we do this every year, and they've been very good about removing their signs when the event is over. I've had no complaints.
Excellent.
Just call us the select board and it'll be totally.
Excuse me. So I would entertain a motion to authorize the Exeter Area General Federation of Women's Clubs to place their small signs as requested along the roadsides in the Exeter area, and also to allow them to put the larger sign advertising the event at the corner of Guinea Road and Hampton Road to be placed on November 13th and removed by November 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes 5-0. Once again, Selectwoman Cowan, same idea here.
It's Exeter Selectman and Deer Select Person.
And this is from the Connery Farm. Last year, we did approve the placing of their Christmas tree sign on the end of Route 88, conditional on obtaining the permit. They are requesting that we allow us to place that same sign in the same location as last year. This year, they will not be placing a sign throughout the fall weekends, but would like to have it up from November 24th through December 24th.
Fine.
Okay, any comment? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to authorize the Tonnery Farm to place their Tonnery Christmas sign on the end of Route 88 from November 24th through December 24th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, in discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And then we have Assistant Fire Chief Justin Pizon. You've got, looks like 6 voluntary residential address changes.
That's correct. So thanks for having me. Yeah, throughout the time with the committee, we've been trying to address some of these issues where we have non-standardized numbering that's taken place. This is a great example. I tried to make it color coordinated so people could have an idea what I was trying to say. But obviously, you come down Linden Street before you get to Deep Meadow Variety and Deep Meadow Lane, you reach 95 Linden Street, which doesn't sound like a big deal until you see the store is 93, and we're supposed to be heading in the upward direction. So it literally goes 91, 93, 95, 91, 95, 93, and then it goes 1 Deep Meadow Park, 2 Deep Meadow Park, 3 Deep Meadow Park, 4 Deep Meadow Park, and then you finally reach 97 Linden Street. So I'll give you a quick story. We were approached by Benjamin Burt, who at the time was on the board for the Homeowners Association in that area, and approached me with a concern about the addressing out there. I won't say which one it was, but a number of years ago, one of those units that are Deep Meadow Park, they had a child with asthma. They called 911, and sure enough, they were on the phone saying, "You're in the park, we're not in the park." So that's exactly why we're here. This committee was put together to address these issues as they come up. So I reached out to all the owners of all the properties, including River Run, which used to be formerly Sherwood Forest. They took possession of 103 and 103A Linden Street. So between the people that were there currently that own the mobile home, but also the property owners, I've addressed with everybody. Everybody's on board. Everybody signed the sheets. So this is just a formality, but I think it's important to come to the board and let everybody know that this is why this committee was put together to look at these issues that exist in town. And so this is a great opportunity to fix some numbering and make it consistent with what we'd expect in numbering of roads. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're not changing any street names, we're just changing the numbers.
Correct.
Linden
Yep.
Street.
It's going to be just going to be all Linden Street addresses. They'll be sequentially ordered, so they'll make sense to people when they respond out there. But no road name changes will be necessary.
And these were all voluntary change of address for emergency responders to easily locate the property. I think there are 6 here, correct, Justin? 1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6. Should be 8 total.
Oh.
But I have all 8 of them.
Nope, you're right.
I had one person that was holding out with some questions they wanted answered. They had dropped off the signed sheet, so I waited. I went out and met with them this past week, answered all their questions. Everybody is on board. This is you're right at the limit at this number. I feel like once we get beyond that 10 number, it's really hard to get everybody to be on board or even try to get a hold of everybody. So it took us a little time, but myself and Deputy Chief Fritz went out and knocked on some doors and were able to get everything signed. So we're in a pretty good spot.
All right, so the first couple, you've got 3 changing from Deep Meadow to Linden. And then one changing from Linden to Deep Meadow, correct?
That is correct. So there's actually going to be 4. So we're going to do the store. The store presented an opportunity for us to eliminate the out of order addressing. We thought, hey, there's an opportunity where you are Deep Meadow variety, and one Deep Meadow lane was available. So here's an opportunity for the store that's Deep Meadow variety to now be located at one Deep Meadow lane.
Got it.
And they've a little bit, I gave them an opportunity. There's obviously some other considerations to make when you're a business owner versus a homeowner, when you have marketing and sales items on, internet-based, addressing and stenciling on vehicles perhaps. So we try to always be considerate and give people plenty of time. But yeah, so that 93 will disappear. It's going to not be reused because obviously 95 was quite a bit before there. So just 93 will be a number that kind of just goes away, and that'll give us that opportunity to get everybody numbered in order.
Okay. So why don't we'll go right through these. I'd entertain a motion to authorize the application for voluntary change of address from 93 Linden Street to 1 Deep Meadow Lane.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 1 Deep Meadow Lane to 103 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 2 Deep Meadow to 101 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 3 Deep Meadow Park to 99 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And I entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 4 Deep Meadow Park to 97 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'd entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 99 Linden Street to 105 Linden Street.
I think it's 97, isn't it?
97.
Is that
Yes,
97? I'm sorry. Strike that, Joanne. I would entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 97 Linden Street to 105 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'd entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 103 Linden Street to 107 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And lastly, I'd entertain a motion to approve the application for voluntary change of address from 103A Linden Street to 109 Linden Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
It's nice that those people are willing to change.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, and thank you to everyone who did this voluntarily.
Yeah, and I think
great.
it really is an effort because I think, and I understand it's a lot of work for everybody. You're changing everything that you have. Luckily, I'll repeat that for the most part, I change most of your addresses. So anything to do with the post office, supervisor the checklist, your utilities, whether it be gas, electric, your cable, I do all that on behalf of the owners of these addresses. So it's really just about, not to minimize it, but it's going to be your credit cards, personal bills, where stuff gets mailed to you personally. One of the residents out here is having a bridal or some type of shower coming up, and she was petrified that we were going to change the address in the middle of this. And she had a registry she was trying to get set up. And I said, you know something, this is perfect. I'm going to really push this forward. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Mr. Dean, Town Manager's report, please.
Okay, a few things just to let the board know, and I think board members were there last week, so it was a good meeting with the Budget Recommendations Committee on Friday to go through the general government. Very thorough discussion on all the different items, so that was good. The next Budget Recommendations Committee meeting is this Wednesday night, and that's for police and fire, and we'll be in this room Wednesday night at 6:30 for that. We are conducting, the assistant town manager and I are conducting interviews for the HR assistant full-time position. We've been doing that this week, and we'll also be interviewing candidates for the deputy tax collector. So we hope to have that filled sometime soon. That would be good. I'll be attending a New Hampshire Housing Stability Solutions Summit tomorrow in Concord, heading up with our Human Services Administrator to that, and looking forward to it. It's a very detailed program with a lot of some mayoral representation and other managers talking about housing and homelessness issues in the immediate areas. So should be a good program. Also reviewing the investment policy with the finance director, so we should have an update and an amendment soon to that policy. We've been looking at the way we've been making investments, so we'll have a conversation with the board and propose some changes there. The MRI classification study got underway last Friday. Again, the assistant town manager and I had a conversation with Carol Granfield from MRI, so we're moving ahead with that process. So we're excited about that. We think it's going to be very productive, and so we're looking forward to it. Trick or Treat is next Monday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. On the 31st. And then Parks and Rec is having a Halloween parade on the 29th at Swayze Parkway. 10:30 for costume judging, 11 o'clock for the parade. So thanks to Parks and Rec for putting that together. And then Chief Wilking talked about the open house for public safety. That is November 15th, again, from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we welcome everybody to come down and get involved in that project and talk to the staff. The Linden Street project, that continues. There's paving going on out there and also new sidewalks, so that's underway and continuing. It's a good project, sponsored by DPW. And then I wanted to report to the board that we've secured all the easements for the Kingston Road project. So that's great news, and everything is now into the state for their approval, so we're looking forward to hopefully having a bid opening done in the springtime. And then also the Cypress petition has been filed by Town Council with Charitable Trust for the Swayze Parkway. So hopefully we'll hear on that soon as well.
Great. I was going to ask. Any questions, Mr. Dean? And so the Kingston Road could start in the spring, you said?
Yes.
Excellent.
That's the hope.
I have one.
Yep.
Linden Street, is that going to be done before our next voting date?
Well, I was going to ask if we not have it on that date.
Yeah, that really was
complete inconvenience for many voters.
Yeah, I'll
closed down there when we had our primary.
I'll try to get you an answer.
We could avoid that again.
Well, instead of getting us an answer, can we get a commitment that they won't be paying that day?
Please.
Yeah.
That'd be better.
Yeah.
Great. And then speaking of DPW, how are we in terms of the search for a new director?
We have candidates.
Excellent.
So that's good news, and we're hopefully going to be interviewing a couple of people next week.
Okay, great.
That's even better. Good.
Okay. Moving along to select board committee reports. Selectwoman Rothschild? No? Selectwoman Cowan?
The only thing that I had to report is that we haven't been able to meet as the Communications Advisory Committee, and so we want to rethink, maybe how we approach this. I do not think I am ready to have that conversation with you all, and I think that I would be excited to include Chris in the, discussions about what we go on.
Okay. Great, thank you. Selectwoman Gilman?
All there was for me was a Historic District Commission. We just had an adjustment to a previously approved application. The building next to Citizens Bank, or part of Citizens Bank, the old newsletter building, they're changing to put in retail, and they're changing the configuration of the windows, and they wanted to change what they had presented before, and it's actually more appropriate to what the old building was like to what they're proposing, so it went right ahead.
Thank you. Selectwoman Belanger.
I had a planning board meeting on October 13th. It was a long discussion. It was regarding the TIF issue that we're having out on Epping Road. There was a lot of discussion. I won't go into it, the details, but the public hearing was closed, and there was a motion to close or to continue the conversation at our November 10th meeting after being able to consider advice from our town council. And then this Thursday, there's a planning board meeting to discuss a lot line adjustment on Hobart Street. Also on I meant to say on Thursday, October 13th, Mr. Sharples gave the planning board an update on the consideration for the rezoning project and where that first draft is at. And I attended an update webinar that I do every year, and I'm going to ask people to do this. I stress the importance for the RSA 91A compliance. The laws change every year. It never hurts us to be reminded of the 91A law and about meetings and all of that. So we have that opportunity to attend these meetings or these updated webinars, and I would stress that our volunteers all try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, that they take advantage of the opportunity. That's what I was looking to say.
It's all online.
Pardon me?
It's all online, too.
Right. Well, I sign up, I watch it, and then I can watch it again for a period of time. And but it's important not to just look at the slides, because there's really important discussion that happens during those. So yes, and that's it for now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. In addition to the all-day BRC meeting that we attended, there was a river advisory meeting last Thursday. Town engineer Paul Vlasic had several updates, the first of which is the siphon project. All easements have been completed, and the project, the whole project should be done by spring of 23. He thought May of 23.
Yay.
The Pickpocket Dam, the contract for the study was just signed with VHB. Paul is looking into, or he's using the combination of grants and some of the ARPA funding that this board has approved. And he thought maybe by spring, early summer, it would be time to maybe invite the folks from Brentwood to one of our meetings to discuss that in total. Also, the Exeter Reservoir, VHB put in an application. We were selected for a $172,000 grant to review discharge capacity. And let's see, he secured another grant for watershed assistance and survey work for stormwater. And finally, the revised MS4 are posted on the town website. So it was a productive hour-long river advisory meeting. Correspondence, we talked about already the letter from the Energy Committee supporting the net zero on the public safety. We do have a communication from Martha, the chair of the Communications Advisory Committee, speaking to the quorum, and I think we've taken steps forward there. I want to skip the next one for last. We have the property and liability and workers' comp information from Primex. Mr. Dean, I'm impressed that the property went down because that's a very tight market, and the fact that our rates went down is impressive. Workers' comp went up slightly. Let's see what else. We have an order of notice from State of New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission that they request the approval for the Exeter Community Power Plan. We authorized Mr. Dean to sign. NHMA is talking about disposition of member legal files. Again, Paul Vlasic with the Exeter Reservoir Dam that I just spoke to. Last, an announcement regarding from the New Hampshire Local Welfare Administration Association regarding COVID New Hampshire emergency rental assistance. And the last piece of correspondence was from a citizen to the chair of the Exeter Heritage Commission, copying the select board as well as the town manager. And in reading this, Selectwoman Gilman, I was a little concerned about this. I didn't know if you were prepared to speak to this now, or if you wanted to maybe speak to it at our next meeting. I'll leave that up to you.
I have to think about what I'm going to say. I really
Fair
don't have a
enough.
chance to do it, but
I would like to discuss it at the next meeting, though, because it's a pretty, well, there are just some, I would encourage, if the board hasn't read this, if everybody could read this and be ready to discuss it at the next meeting with Selectwoman Gilman.
Has anybody responded to him?
I haven't.
the question is, did the chair even
Well,
get
that-
it? I think.
Can you follow up with him?
Yep.
Yeah, it was concerning. It was concerning. So yeah, if you could follow up with with Chair Myers, and then maybe we could be prepared to speak to this at the next meeting. All right. Board calendar, we meet again November 14th, and then November 21st, December 5th, and December 19th. And just a reminder again, Election Day is November 8th. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. Talbot Gym, let's hope for a big turnout.
We'll be there.
We will be there. Selectwoman Gilman, will you have coverage for us?
I have almost commitment, and then I'll probably have to get 2 people.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Any other business? And seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television.
They're in the inside pocket.
On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by
I don't want to
SAA 16
hear it's being
and can be
taped.
found on Channel 13 with all
Yeah,
your
that
school
was great.
sports, events, and meetings.
Yeah, and of course I had it all
You
mangled.
can watch
trying to-
Exeter
I
TV
was
online
trying not
at
to stand up to adjust, but-
exeter.tv,
Thank you.
Apple
Well,
TV,
I
and
just-
on
I
Roku.
need to
Find us on
wear
social
better. I
media
don't
for
know. I
extra
thought it-
content. Subscribe to
No,
our
but-
YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area.
Million to lower the rate.
If you head to our website, exeternh.tv,
Yes, and thank you.
we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more.
Thank you for going through the plan. because
We'd like
I
to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune into our other content as well.
I responded, by the way, to that.
I did too.
And I didn't get anything back.
Same. This is what I was playing with.